Chapter 201, Learning Spells. He utilized the wood affinity rune and released a bit of mana from his body onto his hand. A swirling mass of verdant mana gathered, rich with life energy. Looking at it closely for a bit, he closed his fist to dissipate all the mana before looking toward the desk. He calmly rose from his spot in the room, feeling rather refreshed and familiar with the wood element. Wood element seems rather interesting. The affinity rune he had just formed had significantly deepened his senses, allowing him to intimately perceive the surrounding life forces. Stretching lightly to ease the tension from sitting so long, Orion walked leisurely toward his window table where the exquisite verdant root grimoire was placed, its jade-bound cover reflecting a faint, mystical glow in the gentle moonlight. Settling comfortably onto the bed, Orion carefully opened the ancient tome, its pages releasing a pleasant, earthy fragrance that filled his senses with calm. Lumi's playful voice chimed excitedly within his mind. "Ooh, Master. Time to explore some wonderful wood element spells. I wonder which ones you will decide to master. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to." Orion smiled softly, his eyes lighting up with a hint of excitement at learning new things. "Indeed, Lil Lumi. The wood element is quite interesting with its versatile uses. Let's see what fascinating spells I can learn now." Slowly flipping through the elegant pages, Orion's eyes absorbed the intricate illustrations and detailed descriptions. Each spell was carefully described, accompanied by delicate runic diagrams and meticulous explanations of mana flow and casting chants. After browsing thoughtfully for a while, Orion finally settled on 3 promising Tier 1 spells. Verdant Shield, a protective barrier made of rapidly growing vines and leaves, capable of absorbing and dispersing incoming damage. Entangling Roots, summon sturdy, flexible roots to ensnare opponents, greatly restricting their movements and temporarily immobilizing them. Nature's Grasp channels mana into surrounding plants, enabling manipulation of nearby vegetation to perform various supportive actions such as grasping or pulling objects. Moving onward, he selected 2 potent Tier 2 spells that piqued his interest. Emerald Blade forms a sharp blade of hardened wood infused with mana, capable of slicing through sturdy materials and dealing significant damage. Verdant Surge releases a powerful surge of vibrant life energy, enhancing allies' physical regeneration and temporarily boosting their vitality and endurance. Lastly, he chose a single but incredibly powerful Tier 3 spell. Forest's Embrace. Within a 10 m radius, dozens of vines erupt, each seeking a different limb. Targets are immobilized, lifted slightly, and squeezed, non-lethal. The caster can selectively release allies. Duration 15 seconds. Satisfied with his carefully chosen selection, Orion smiled confidently. These skills seem good enough for now. They should be able to complement my existing abilities. And increasing my versatility is a plus here. Lumi enthusiastically agreed, her voice bright and encouraging. Wonderful choices, Master. You've picked spells that perfectly balance attack, defense, and support. You're becoming even more versatile every day. Orion chuckled softly, gently retrieving several blank parchments and an elegant mana-infused pen. Then he looked over at the runes required for each spell once more. Verdant Shield, Wood, Shield, Sustain. Entangling Roots, Wood, Bind, Pull. Nature's Grasp, Wood, Flow, Pull. Emerald Blade, Wood, Sharpen, Reinforce, Amplify, Contain. Verdant Surge, Wood, Amplify, Sustain, Absorb, Cleanse. Forest's Embrace, Wood, Flow, Split, Bind, Sustain, Amplify, Contain, Channel. With intense concentration, he began learning all the runes required for the spells. After finishing learning all the runes in a while, he began practicing runic sequences and mana circuits for each chosen spell, methodically perfecting every intricate detail on the parchment. Sar the novelfire.net * website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Each stroke of the pen was precise, confident, and efficient, reflecting his rapidly increasing mastery over runic inscriptions and mana manipulation. After several focused hours passed, Orion leaned back slightly, exhaling a soft sigh of contentment. Each of the spells had been mastered on parchment, their intricate runes and patterns vividly etched into his memory. Now came the final yet most crucial step, engraving the spells directly into his sea of consciousness. Taking a deep breath, Orion closed his eyes once more, carefully guiding his consciousness inward. Within his sea of consciousness, the freshly forged wood affinity rune floated vibrantly, resonating gently in harmony with his mind and mana. Slowly and methodically, Orion began the delicate engraving process. With perfect mental control, he first engraved the Tier 1 spells, Verdant Shield, Entangling Roots, and Nature's Grasp, each spell solidifying effortlessly as their runic formations aligned harmoniously with the wood affinity rune. Next, the Tier 2 spells, Emerald Blade and Verdant Surge, were inscribed precisely and smoothly, their runes integrating seamlessly. Lastly, Orion carefully approached the engraving of the powerful Tier 3 spell, Forest's Embrace. Each rune was inscribed meticulously, with Orion paying utmost attention to mana stability and circuit alignment. As he finished forming the third tier spell, a surge of resonance echoed gently between the affinity rune and the spell inside his SOC, marking the completion of the spell. Phew, finally done for the day, Orion softly murmured, the echoes of his voice rippling gently within his expansive sea of consciousness. Glancing around, he marveled briefly at the tranquility and vastness of the once barren place, now gradually filling with vibrant runes and glowing spells. A satisfied smile appeared on his lips, feeling pleased with his steady progress. As he allowed his gaze to wander across the azure expanses, his thoughts inevitably drifted toward the damned presence hidden deep within his sea of consciousness, the powerful soul-piercer sword. After a moment's hesitation, Orion moved deeper into his expansive sea of consciousness, calmly navigating through the thick, swirling azure mist that enveloped him like an endless sea of ethereal fog. The surroundings were eerily silent, the atmosphere heavy with an otherworldly stillness that resonated deep within his soul. His heart beat steadily, each pulse echoing in this surreal landscape. Slowly, his thoughts returned to the soul-piercer sword, a mysterious, powerful entity sealed deep within the recesses of his sea of consciousness by echo during the 10 gacha draws. He recalled vividly how the sword had fiercely resisted him the last time, its violent aura forcefully opposing his presence, requiring him to utilize his potent dragon's might to suppress it. Master. Are you really sure about this? Lumi's gentle yet apprehensive voice broke the silence, clearly feeling worried for him. That damn soul-piercer sword is nothing good and is only disobedient. It didn't even hesitate to attack you last time. Epsilon. Orion's lips curled into a confident yet slightly amused smile as he responded calmly, Lil Lumi, I've advanced significantly since then. I'm already at the peak of Tier 3 in both mana and physique paths. My SOC has also grown exponentially stronger and more resilient since last time. If the sword couldn't harm me previously, it surely can't harm me now. Lumi sighed softly, her voice filled with playful resignation. If Master is so confident, then Lumi will cheer you on. But please be careful, okay? Orion chuckled softly, continuing his steady walk toward the sword's hidden location, deeper into his mind. Soon, the swirling mist parted gradually, revealing the distinct presence of the soul-piercer sword floating serenely yet ominously in the distance, exuding an aura both elegant and menacing. It hung silently, its sleek black blade and dragon-engraved hilt emanating a subdued, yet tangible pressure that spread throughout the surroundings. Chapter 202, Looking for it again. I didn't notice it last time, but why does this sword have dragon engravings? He curiously wondered to himself. Lumi stayed silent, as even she had no idea about it. As soon as he neared the sword, its tranquil stillness abruptly transformed, emitting a fierce, oppressive wave of chilling sword intent. Orion, however, calmly stood his ground, his enhanced mental resilience now easily withstanding the sword's oppressive pressure compared to his previous struggle. Still stubborn, I see, Orion murmured gently, stepping forward unhurriedly, his voice steady and confident. Let's see if you'll be so rebellious this time around. The sword's aura pulsed sharply, intensifying its pressure as if defiantly attempting to challenge Orion's determination. Yet, Orion felt significantly less difficulty compared to his previous encounter, his strengthened sea of consciousness effortlessly absorbing and dispersing the relentless pressure. Finally reaching out, Orion confidently grasped the sword's hilt firmly in his mental grip. Immediately, he swung it gracefully through the azure mists, testing its weight and responsiveness. Though the sword obediently allowed itself to be wielded, Orion distinctly sensed lingering resistance and faint rejection from within its core. Still unwilling, Orion mused thoughtfully, carefully analyzing the sword's subtle reactions. But far less rebellious than before. Seems I'm slowly earning your approval. He lightly smiled, convinced that soon the sword would completely acknowledge and accept him. Just as Orion prepared to release his grip, a sudden surge of powerful, vibrant energy burst forth from the sword's core. His eyes widened slightly in astonishment, swiftly retreating a step and carefully observing the unexpected phenomenon. The sword glowed brilliantly, releasing streams of shadowy mana that swirled elegantly, gradually coalescing into a tangible form beside it. Moments later, her silhouette quickly solidified into a mesmerizing woman, exuding mature allure and an undeniable aura of danger. Midnight black hair flowed like a silk waterfall over slender shoulders adorned with delicate draconic scales. Her eyes slowly opened, revealing ember-bright, vertically slit pupils that glowed softly. Four graceful horns of polished obsidian and subtle crimson curved smoothly back from her head, forming a regal, draconic crown. Behind her, small wing stubs arced gently, framed by her raven-dark hair. She stood calmly, an embodiment of lethal beauty and confidence, clearly carrying the allure of the true dragon lineage. Orion's gaze lingered briefly over her striking figure. A sleek hourglass shape defined her feminine frame, ample curves accentuated by a plunging black lace top that glowed subtly like polished onyx. The woman's captivating eyes carefully studied Orion for a moment, curiosity clearly evident within their fiery depths. Her lush lips curled into a subtle, sultry smile as she finally broke the tense silence, her voice rich, melodic, and undeniably alluring. "So, you are the one who has dared to awaken me," she purred softly, tilting her head slightly, her gaze both curious and challenging. "You've grown stronger since the last time." "Quite impressive." Orion calmly met her gaze, feeling intrigued rather than threatened as he could feel no danger from her. "Indeed, I have. And you seem rather different from what I expected a sword spirit to be." Search the novel, FIR.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The woman chuckled gently, her laughter delicate yet filled with calmness. She slowly stepped closer, her presence radiating enticing danger. "Did you expect some dusty old man? Or perhaps a faceless, ethereal voice?" Her lips curled teasingly. "I am far more than a mere sword spirit, young man. I embody a legacy, the strength, wisdom, and allure of an ancient dragon bloodline." Orion's brows rose slightly, a glimmer of interest sparking in his eyes. "A dragon bloodline? That explains the engravings on the sword. But why are you sealed within this blade, and why the hostility?" She elegantly crossed her arms beneath her ample chest, her smile turning faintly melancholic. "I wasn't always sealed here, you know. Circumstances forced me into this state, bound within the soul piercer. As for hostility, well, would you simply submit if your freedom was stripped away?" He nodded thoughtfully, understanding her resistance. "Fair enough. But what legacy do you hold?" Her lips curled into a bitter smile. "It has been far too long since I was sealed away. My memories have been fragmented, and I do not even remember my name, much less the glorious legacy of my true dragon clan." Orion rubbed his chin and asked softly, "Do you remember why or when you turned into this state?" Her draconic tail swung around as she gently exhaled. "I remember fighting on the front lines against." "Huh?" Her lips let out a bitter laugh. "I don't even remember what we were fighting against." Orion calmly stood, letting her sort out her thoughts herself. After a few short seconds, she continued, "I only remember the time period. I was fighting the war during the fourth epoch, and what happened afterwards. I have no idea." Her eyes lit up as she eagerly took a step towards Orion and stood in front of him, clasping his shoulders. She asked, "Which epoch is it right now? Did we win the war?" Orion's brow twitched slightly as he shook his head. "I have no idea which epoch it is or what war you are talking about." I'm not old enough for this shit. Her body paused, her face becoming downcast in disappointment. Right, I expected too much from a brat. Orion's lips twitched. Hey! Who are you calling a brat? She raised her head and looked at him playfully. Aren't you a brat? I can tell you are not even a year old. But already reached the third tier of the awakening realm. I don't know if times have changed this much that the primordial talents are becoming common, or you are just abnormal. Orion speechlessly looked at her, not expecting her to know his age at a single glance. You can tell my age? Of course. She took a step back and proudly placed her hand on her huge chest. I can smell a brat like you from a mile away, especially since we are both true dragons. His gaze slightly widened as she also named his legacy. How do you know so much about me? You're a dragon, not a dog. You can't smell so much stuff. Master. This damn cow is linked with your soul so she can look at you more thoroughly than others. Oh my, such a feisty little thing, the woman's lips curled into an amused smile hearing Lumi's voice. You can hear her too, he asked, but before anyone could answer, he continued, the soul. Since you both are linked with my soul, huh? Yes, master. Now we have an uninvited guest here. Oh come on, you make it sound so bad. It was. Orion, huh? It was he who awakened me, not the other way around. She lightly spread her hands and said in a nonchalant tone. Orion shook his head, as she was proving even more headache-inducing than he had expected. Alright, enough of this now. So how about we form an alliance? You can keep your freedom, and once I am capable enough, I will help you forge a body. In return, allow me to use you. The woman's expression turned serious as she considered Orion's proposal. Orion stood patiently waiting while Lumi stayed in her screened form, floating beside Orion and looking at the woman closely. After what felt like an eternity, she slowly raised her head, her sultry smile returning. Her ember-bright eyes shimmered with mischievous allure as she gracefully stepped forward, closing the gap between them. Chapter 203, Asteraxa. Orion, curious and unflinching, remained rooted to his spot, calmly meeting her enticing gaze. Her figure drew closer, exuding a warmth laced with danger, her draconic presence softly overwhelming. As she reached him, Orion felt her breath, faintly warm, brushing against his ear as she whispered with seductiveness, the conditions you proposed. I accept them. Will you? Before Orion could reply, Lumi abruptly screamed in his mind, panicked and indignant. What are you doing, you dragon cow? Back off from Master right this instant. #. The woman's lush lips curled into a playful smile, clearly amused by Lumi's outburst. Ignoring Lumi's protests, she patiently awaited Orion's response, their faces mere inches apart. Orion paused for a moment, carefully considering her words. Feeling no malice, he finally nodded slightly and calmly replied, I accept. Immediately, her eyes flashed with scarlet. Without warning, her plump lips gently pressed against the sensitive skin of his neck, and Orion sharply inhaled as her sharp, delicate draconic teeth pierced softly, drawing a tiny bead of blood. His body briefly tensed from the surprising sensation before she swiftly withdrew, a faint crimson smear staining her alluring lips. She stepped back, leisurely wiping her lips with the back of her slender hand. Her gaze locked onto Orion with satisfaction as she declared confidently, a blood contract has now bound us. From this moment forward, you can freely use me, her voice dipped seductively, emphasizing the word suggestively, for absolutely anything. Lumi screamed again. Anything? You cow, don't get carried away. Master isn't that kind of man. Oh. The dragon woman laughed lightly, utterly delighted by Lumi's overprotective reactions. Orion, however, maintained his calm demeanor, raising an eyebrow inquisitively, his lips twitching slightly. Is there a catch? Her eyes softened into amused caution. Indeed. Although the contract grants you complete authority, you are far too weak right now to handle my current weakened power. Trying to wield me prematurely would drain your mana dry and leave you nothing but skin and bones. Orion thoughtfully nodded, glancing briefly toward Lumi for confirmation. Lumi reluctantly sighed, confirming, unfortunately, she's right, Master. This sword cow's power is too immense for your current mana capacity. It's too dangerous for you to wield her fully yet. He accepted Lumi's confirmation, nodding, fair enough. Then I'll wait until I grow stronger. In the meantime, do you recall anything else from your past, perhaps a name? The woman's playful demeanor faltered momentarily, her gaze distant and contemplative. After a quiet moment, she shook her head softly, a bittersweet smile appearing. As I said, my memories remain fragmented. My name? I no longer recall. Since you awakened me and seem clueless about my original identity, I suppose it's fitting I give myself a new one. Her lips curled teasingly again, but there was genuine sincerity in her eyes. After a momentary pause, she confidently declared, I will name myself Asteraxa. Remember it well, Orion, as we are now bound by blood. Orion smiled lightly, acknowledging her name. Then, Asteraxa, I look forward to our partnership. Now, if you don't mind, what do you mean by your weakened state? Are you not at full power? And how weak currently? Her eyes twitched at the stream of questions. Wait, one question at a time. Lightly shaking her head, she continued, far too long has passed and a lot of runes have lost their power. Even my draconic soul is nothing but a mere fragment of its past self. She paused, looking at Orion's body while licking her lips. However, your blood and mana should be able to nourish me. Orion nodded his head, not minding this little bit of expenditure after forming the blood contract. And how strong are you? Her lips formed a smirk. I'm above the 9th tier for you. You should become stronger first before gauging my current strength. Orion tiredly sighed and decided to exit the sea of consciousness. Alright then, I will see you later when I'm stronger. For now, you should rest as well. Asteraxa smiled lightly, I have been resting for eons already, but very well, a few more centuries is nothing much. Orion's consciousness slowly withdrew from his sea of consciousness, the vibrant azure landscape and Asteraxa's alluring figure gradually fading as he returned to the outside world. His eyes fluttered open gently, revealing his familiar, softly illuminated room. The gentle glow of moonlight cascaded through the curtains, casting subtle shadows around him. He rose slowly from his seated meditation position at the room's center, exhaling a soft breath of relief and fatigue. Orion lightly stretched, easing the stiffness from his limbs after hours of intense mental exertion. Quietly, he moved toward his spacious bed, its soft, inviting comfort instantly relaxing him as he lay down. Master, are you feeling all right after forming the contract with that sword cow? Winky face. Orion chuckled lightly at Lumi's ongoing rivalry, settling comfortably against his pillows. Yes, Lumi. I'm perfectly fine. If anything, the contract feels surprisingly stable. Besides, having her power by our side will undoubtedly help us in the future. Lumi sighed exaggeratedly, clearly still a little reluctant about their new companion, but ultimately nodded in acceptance. If you say so, Master. But Lumi will still watch her carefully. Orion's smile lingered warmly as he continued chatting casually with Lumi, their conversations meandering through the various spells he had learned and his plans for the coming days. Gradually, his voice softened, words slowing as fatigue gently pulled him toward restful sleep. Soon enough, Orion's eyes drifted closed completely, breathing steady and even as peaceful slumber finally claimed him. The next morning, Orion was abruptly stirred from deep sleep by gentle yet insistent knocking on his door. He groaned softly, slowly opening his eyes and glancing toward the softly illuminated window. Sunlight was already streaming cheerfully through the curtains. Xianxia the Oval Fire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Master. Why did you sleep till so late? This isn't like you at all. Sigma. Orion shook his head lightly, blinking away sleepiness as he sat upright in bed. Honestly, Lumi, I don't know. Perhaps the mental strain from forming that affinity rune and the contract with Asteraxa took more out of me than expected. Lumi paused thoughtfully, humming quietly as she considered his words, before finally offering a suggestion. Could it also be because your evolution is drawing closer? Your body might naturally demand more rest during this critical phase. Orion's eyes narrowed slightly in contemplation, slowly nodding in agreement. That's a reasonable assumption. Well, we'll find out soon enough. Another gentle knock came from the door, followed by a soft, concerned voice. Master Orion? Are you awake? Recognizing Rena's worried tone, Orion swiftly called back reassuringly, Yes, Rena, Fiora, I'm awake now. Just give me a moment. He quickly rose from the bed, rubbing sleep from his eyes as he headed toward the washroom. Freshening up quickly, he returned feeling much more fresh, finally opening the door to reveal the two maids waiting patiently with gentle smiles. Good morning, Master. Rena greeted cheerfully, her bubbly energy immediately brightening Orion's mood. Fiora shyly echoed the greeting, her soft voice filled with quiet warmth. Good morning, Master. Orion smiled gently, nodding at both of them. Good morning, you too. Sorry to have kept you waiting. Rena shook her head energetically, her cheerful demeanor never wavering. No need for apologies, Master. We were just a bit worried since you don't usually sleep this late. The two girls swiftly guided Orion through his morning routine, efficiently bathing him and carefully dressing him in his usual attire. Chapter 204, Next Level for Sword. Once properly prepared, Orion headed downstairs to join Eldrick and Celine for a peaceful, comforting breakfast. As usual, their pleasant morning conversation and gentle warmth filled him with a reassuring sense of family and stability. After finishing breakfast, Orion decided to step outside, enjoying the fresh morning breeze. Casually strolling through the mansion's beautifully maintained gardens, he quickly spotted Edgar lounging leisurely beneath the warm sunlight, with Lucan comfortably seated nearby, both clearly relishing the peaceful atmosphere. Orion approached them with a relaxed smile, raising an eyebrow slightly in amusement. Enjoying yourselves, Uncle Edgar, Brother Lucan? Edgar chuckled softly, his eyes closed and expression content as he replied lazily, Ah, young master, the sunlight today is especially pleasant. You should try sunbathing too, excellent for relaxing tired muscles. Lucan opened one eye briefly, smirking playfully. Indeed, young master, take advantage of such peaceful mornings while you can. They tend to be rare lately, given how busy you keep us. Orion laughed lightly, shaking his head as he settled beside them. Perhaps you're right. A brief moment of relaxation wouldn't hurt before we go back to train. Edgar nodded approvingly, his voice calm and reassuring. Precisely, young master. Sometimes slowing down is exactly what we need to accelerate our progress. Orion smiled softly, leaning back comfortably, savoring the gentle warmth of the sun. The three of them lay down below the sun for some quiet moments before Orion softly asked, Uncle Edgar, do you know about the past of Rena and Fiora? Edgar opened his eyes and looked at Orion with slight surprise. I see, so Master Eldrick and Lady Celine decided to tell you, huh? And yes, I do know. I have been serving Master Eldrick for a long time now. Lucan sat up as his eyes burned with curiosity. What? What is this that I don't know about? Edgar shook his head. Nothing for you to concern yourself with. Focus on training yourself. Orion lightly exhaled, I didn't know they had such difficult pasts. Edgar softly nodded, his expression briefly turning solemn yet gentle as he spoke. Indeed, young master. Both of them endured trials that no one their age should have to face. But perhaps because of those experiences, they've grown stronger, more compassionate. In a way, hardships forge resilience and character, something you yourself will understand with time. Orion quietly contemplated Edgar's words, the pleasant sunlight warm against his skin as he reflected deeply. The soft whispers of the garden's breeze and occasional chirping of birds provided a peaceful backdrop to their introspective conversation. Lucan, unable to suppress his curiosity completely, leaned slightly forward and asked cautiously, Young master, are they truly all right now? I mean, from the little I've seen, Rena always looks cheerful, and Fiora is quiet but seems content. If their past was so difficult, they seem to have healed remarkably well. Orion smiled gently, turning his gaze to Lucan. Yes, brother Lucan. It seems they've both found their own ways of coping and moving forward. But still, knowing their stories made me realize how deeply they've hidden their pain. It reminds me of the weight we all carry behind our smiles. Edgar offered a subtle, approving nod. Precisely. The best we can do is support them, guiding them toward a brighter future. And from what I've observed, young master, your presence has certainly brought much comfort to both of them. A comfortable silence soon settled over the trio, each man quietly enjoying the tranquil morning atmosphere. Orion's thoughts gradually shifted from reflective contemplation toward a desire for physical activity and progression. Feeling sufficiently rested, he slowly stood up, stretching lightly to warm up his muscles. Uncle Edgar, Orion called softly, breaking the serene silence gently, let's start our training for today. Edgar opened his eyes and smoothly rose to his feet, calmly, immediately transitioning from relaxed uncle into the disciplined demeanor of a seasoned swordsman. Lucan settled back comfortably again, a playful smirk on his lips as he gestured lazily, train well, young master. I'll continue enjoying the sunshine here. Orion smiled faintly, shaking his head as Edgar accompanied him back inside the mansion. They swiftly navigated the elegant halls, soon reaching the spacious training room. Warm sunlight filtered through the large windows, illuminating the polished wooden floor and neatly arranged weapon racks along the walls. Orion and Edgar swiftly equipped themselves, choosing their usual training swords, familiar and comfortable in their grip. Their sparring commenced with low intensity, Orion seamlessly demonstrating the sharpness and precision he diligently honed under Edgar's experienced guidance. Search the novelfire.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. The sound of swords clashing filled the training room, a rhythmic dance echoing clearly within the mansion. Today's session felt subtly different to Orion, each movement sharper, smoother, more instinctual. His strikes flowed naturally, blending power and speed harmoniously. Edgar matched Orion's intensity, steadily increasing the pace, testing the limits of Orion's current abilities. After a particularly intense exchange, Edgar finally stepped back, signaling the end of the training session. Both breathed calmly, a thin sheen of sweat lightly coating Orion's forehead. Edgar's expression softened appreciatively as he spoke gently, young master, your progress in swordsmanship has truly reached an impressive point after your visit to the Tower of Myths. You've nearly mastered the basics completely, there is little more that merely practicing fundamentals can offer you now. Orion's eyes lit up curiously, eager anticipation flickering within his gaze. Then, what comes next, Uncle Edgar? Edgar nodded, taking a few measured steps back. His aura subtly shifted, becoming more focused and intense. He slowly adjusted his stance, holding his training sword firmly before him. Normally, the next stage, basic sword aura, is taught after one reaches the 4th level of body forging. The demands on one's physique are significant. However, your body is already far stronger than most at your current stage. I believe you're more than ready to begin learning. Orion watched with intense interest, holding his breath slightly as Edgar concentrated deeply. A subtle, visible ripple of mana flowed from Edgar's SOC, traveling smoothly through his body and coating the wooden sword. A faint yet undeniable glow, a thin but potent aura, shimmered clearly along the blade's edge. With precise movements, Edgar calmly swung his sword through the air several times, each swing producing a crisp, resonating hum, the blade's subtle aura amplifying its intensity and speed. Edgar finally stopped, calmly lowering his sword and turning to face Orion again. His eyes were filled with quiet pride and expectation as he clearly stated, "This, young master, is basic sword aura. It is the true hallmark of a genuine swordsman. It enhances your blade, making your strikes sharper, swifter, and more potent. Mastering this step firmly places you on the path of true swordsmanship." Orion's heart surged with excitement. His gaze was bright, clear, and resolute as he softly yet firmly replied, "Then let's begin immediately, Uncle Edgar. I am ready to step onto the path of a true swordsman." Edgar chuckled and shook his head, sheathing his sword. You should first calm your mind and contemplate on the sword aura I have shown you. We can begin training from tomorrow. Orion deflated like a balloon, nodding his head. Then I will do as you say. I'll go back and read some books. Edgar nodded with a smile as Orion left the training room. Lumi's energetic voice echoed in his mind. Are you going to read the elemental books for the Affinity Rune, Master? Orion smirked and shook his head. Tell me, Lumi, why did I take the mana crystals from Magi? Gambling. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to asterisk, oh. Chapter 205, Cursed Draw. He chuckled softly and nodded. Yes, it's about time we see the glorious display of over 300 draws at once. With cheerful anticipation lighting up his eyes, Orion quickly made his way through the quiet mansion halls and toward his room. Upon reaching his familiar chamber, he casually glanced around, noting the silence. The absence of Rune and Fiora was noticeable, as he had told them to go do as they wished since he would be busy today. Well, this is good as well. They can take some time to do their own thing. A warm smile graced his face as he remembered the two lively girls. He leisurely removed his sweaty clothes and headed into the luxurious bathing chamber connected to his room. Warm, steaming water cascaded gently over his body, washing away the fatigue from his training and refreshing his mind and senses. A few moments later, freshly bathed and dressed comfortably, Orion returned to his room with renewed vigor and eagerness gleaming within his eyes. He settled down onto his plush bed, feeling his anticipation rising. Unable to suppress his excitement, he spoke to Lumi, his voice brimming with barely restrained enthusiasm. It's finally time, Lumi. Are you ready for the most magnificent gacha draws we've done so far? Absolutely, Master. I've been waiting for this moment for days. Let's see some epic treasures. Orion chuckled softly, pleased by Lumi's equally excited reaction. Without further delay, he retrieved the storage ring Magi had reluctantly handed over to him earlier, his fingertips lightly brushing its cool, smooth surface. He gently poured mana into the ring, a vibrant burst of sparkling blue light instantly revealing a shimmering pile of high-grade mana crystals neatly stacked within. Alright, Lumi, convert all of these into system points, Orion instructed with a confident smile, mentally preparing himself for the incoming spectacle. Lumi immediately sprang into action, rapidly scanning the sparkling crystals. Brightly glowing numeric values flashed rapidly across Orion's mental interface, plus 1.1 SP, plus 1.2 SP, plus 0.9 SP, and so forth, creating a dazzling cascade of numerical data streaming rapidly down the screen. Orion watched closely, excitement steadily growing within his chest as the flashing numbers gradually slowed before finally stopping. With a cheerful flourish, Lumi dramatically revealed the final total in vibrant, glowing letters. Final SP count, 3,245 SP. Congratulations, Master. Greater than over equal to nabla less than over equal to, /. Orion's eyes widened slightly, a satisfied grin appearing on his face as he admired the massive number. 3,245. Now that's an impressive amount. He leaned back slightly, comfortably lounging on his bed as his thoughts raced with excitement, carefully considering the sheer magnitude of draws this amount of SP would allow him. Orion began daydreaming about the amount of treasures he could get from the draws, his draconic side clearly showing its effect on his treasure-hoarding habit. Lumi happily chimed in, clearly sharing Orion's exhilaration. Hee, Master, just imagine the treasures we can get from over 300 draws at once. Epic weapons, rare runes, or maybe even legendary artifacts, anything could happen. Orion woke up from his daydreaming and shook his head before chuckling softly, playfully teasing her enthusiasm. Careful, Lumi, don't jinx it for us. But still, this should certainly be exciting. Let's hope luck favors us today. With Master's luck, I'm sure it will be amazing. Let's start whenever you're ready. Asterisk. Orion sat up straighter on his bed, eyes gleaming with excitement as he mentally gave the green light to Lumi. Alright, Lumi, let's not delay any longer. Begin the draws now. Lumi cheerfully obliged, first setting the atmosphere as she always did. A lively, upbeat gacha background music began playing energetically inside Orion's mind, filling him with a familiar rush of anticipation and thrill. Now presenting the legendary treasure gacha. Will Master be lucky today, or shall misfortune strike? Let's spin to find out. Asterisk. Orion chuckled lightly, amused by Lumi's dramatic flair. Just start already. Without further ado, Lumi displayed the first draw prominently within Orion's mental interface. He watched with steady composure, eyes sharply focused as the draw began spinning vividly with enticing colors before gradually coming to a halt, revealing empty. Orion calmly nodded his head, seemingly unbothered. First draw empty, nothing unusual. Keep going. Lumi immediately continued, swiftly starting the next draw. Once more, the wheel spun energetically, vibrant colors flashing enticingly, before slowing down. Empty. Orion's expression remained calm, but a faint twitch appeared at the corner of his eye. Again, not too strange. We have plenty more to go. Draw after draw spun, each presenting itself in grand, dramatic fashion, and yet each concluded exactly the same way, empty. By the 10th empty draw, Orion's usually calm expression had begun to subtly shift. A small crease formed between his brows, hinting at growing annoyance. 20 draws, 30 draws, each one still empty. Orion's composed facade was rapidly deteriorating. His eyes narrowed dangerously, a faintly ominous aura beginning to seep out of him. His fingers drummed impatiently against his thigh, his previously relaxed posture becoming increasingly rigid. Lumi's voice grew slightly nervous as she announced yet another disappointing result. 49 draws, empty again, Master. Orion's eye twitched, his breath coming out in a tense, heavy sigh. This is ridiculous, 50 draws and not a single treasure, what is this cursed luck? Search asterisk the novel fire, the net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. As the 50th draw spun and once more revealed absolutely nothing, Orion's previously composed demeanor cracked sharply. His draconic instinct, usually held carefully in check, erupted slightly. A fierce, intimidating aura filled the room, causing the air to tremble faintly around him. His voice rose angrily, carrying a faintly guttural growl. What the hell is going on here? 50 draws and not one damn treasure? Is this some twisted joke? Echo. Master. Please calm down. Is identical to. Lumi hurriedly interjected, panic clear in her normally cheerful voice. It might just be Echo playing tricks. Let's keep trying, alright? Taking several deep, slow breaths to suppress his rising temper, Orion slowly regained his composure, though irritation still clearly simmered within his eyes. Fine, keep going. Surely something must appear soon. Lumi nervously initiated the next draw. This time, as it spun, Orion leaned forward intently, his heart thudding heavily in anticipation. After a suspenseful pause, it finally stopped. Congratulations, Master. Tier 4 treasure acquired, Mountain's Dew Elixir. A potent healing elixir capable of mending severe injuries instantly. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Orion visibly relaxed, exhaling sharply in relief, the tension in his body significantly lessening. His anger subsided somewhat, replaced with optimism. Finally, something appeared. Continue, Lumi, perhaps our luck has turned. Lumi eagerly continued the draws, but as before, a terrible streak of emptiness followed. Each new empty result caused Orion's temper to flare slightly more intensely, his carefully regained composure quickly fracturing once again. By the time the 90th empty draw had concluded, Orion's patience shattered completely. His draconic instinct surged furiously, flooding the room with palpable anger and frustration. Orion's eyes nearly turned into reptilian slits, glowing dangerously as he exploded in anger. Enough. What kind of cursed nonsense is this? Master. Wait, calm down, please. Sigma, winky face. Lumi desperately pleaded, frantic to quell Orion's erupting temper. Maybe it's all because of that dragon cow. Your luck has clearly been terrible since forming a bond with her. Chapter 206, Rare draws. Orion's expression darkened further at Lumi's suggestion, a growl slipping from his lips. If this is really her fault, I swear. Panicking slightly, Lumi rapidly interrupted. And no, Master, wait. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Here, let me quickly do 10 more draws, alright? I'm sure something will appear this time. Before Orion could respond, Lumi hastily activated the next 10 draws simultaneously, spinning them quickly in rapid succession. Orion watched intently, his draconic aura still tense and dangerously sharp. Suddenly, Orion's furious expression shifted abruptly, surprise clearly evident in his widened eyes as the results from the 10 draws were displayed all at once, each glowing vibrantly with various colorful treasures. Master, look! All 10 draws succeeded this time. Sigma. The sudden influx of treasure slowly dissipated Orion's fierce anger, replacing it with cautious disbelief. He exhaled heavily, the oppressive aura finally receding as he rubbed his temple lightly, calming his turbulent thoughts. 10 treasures at once after 90 miserable failures. Fine, perhaps the dragon cow isn't to blame completely. Maybe my luck isn't entirely lost just yet, Orion muttered quietly, slowly regaining his usual calm demeanor. Lumi breathed a dramatic sigh of relief, quickly displaying the newly obtained items with excited enthusiasm. Hee, Master, see. Echo was definitely just messing with us. Now, let's see exactly what wonderful treasures we've received. Orion tiredly chuckled, the remnants of his earlier anger fading into mild irritation. He shook his head lightly, leaning back into his pillows with a sigh. Alright, Lumi, show me clearly what we've finally won. And after this, remind me never to draw so many at once again. This nearly gave me a heart attack. Lumi giggled nervously but happily. Of course, Master. Lesson learned. Orion's eyes swiftly moved across the items displayed, a faint sigh of disappointment escaping his lips. The treasures, although useful, were nothing exceptional, mostly mid-tier weapons, assorted armor pieces, and a few vials of elixirs. While certainly valuable enough for Magi to profitably sell, nothing among them stood out enough to satisfy Orion's draconic taste. Well, nothing special here, Orion murmured quietly, mildly disappointed yet maintaining his composure. Lumi, continue with the draws. Let's see if our luck improves. Right away, Master. Let's spin again. The draws resumed, and Orion leaned forward slightly, watching the vibrant display intently. As the next 10 draws were completed, his eyebrows rose slightly. This time, none were empty, each draw yielded at least a small treasure or artifact. That's interesting, Orion mused inwardly, his eyes narrowing suspiciously. After that brutal initial streak, now every draw yields something? Lumi chimed in thoughtfully, equally suspicious. Master, perhaps, something went wrong initially? Maybe all the empty draws somehow stacked at the beginning? It's not normal, but knowing Echo. Orion's lips twitched in mild annoyance. Didn't expect this from him, messing with me even from afar. However, his mood improved quickly as the next few sets of draws unfolded seamlessly. A steady influx of weapons, elixirs, and various treasures flowed into his inventory, items that would undoubtedly replenish Limitless Heaven's depleted stock. The draws steadily continued, each one consistently rewarding Orion, completely opposite to the disastrous start. He slowly relaxed again, finally savoring the thrill of the gotcha. Among the 200 remaining draws, however, 8 particular treasures stood out, immediately capturing Orion's full attention. Dragonbane Insight Pearl. Grade, Rare. Effect, provides an intense 3-heartbeat flash of ancient dragon memories during deep meditation, vastly enhancing his control over draconic instinct and increasing the comprehension of the true dragon bloodline by 5 to 10%. Drakeheart Vitality Potion. Sir, the novel, F. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Grade, Uncommon. Effect, instantly refills the body with energy and mana. Helpful during the evolution of species. Also ideal for recovering from severe injuries. Verdant Root Quill. Grade, uncommon. Effect, a precious wooden pen that naturally channels mana, greatly improving the speed and precision of rune and formation inscriptions. Sword Aura Resonance Stone. Grade, uncommon. Effect, upon gripping, floods the wielder's mind with a direct sensory experience of various sword auras, drastically speeding up the learning and comprehension of aura techniques. Heartspring Sapling Seed. Grade, uncommon. Effect, when planted, slowly grows into a sapling capable of gathering ambient mana and forming a small natural mana well, enriching the surrounding environment. Instant Insight Scroll, 9-Step Quake. Grade, common. Effect, instantly imparts deep insight into the complex footwork skill 9-Step Quake, significantly enhancing agility and evasiveness, though it consumes considerable mana. Void Shift Charm. Grade, uncommon. Effect, allows the wielder to instantly teleport, blink, up to 200 meters once to their desired location, ignoring obstructions or line of sight. Single-use item that is destroyed after activation. Silent Hall Cube. Grade, uncommon. Effect, creates a complete sound barrier within a 20 x 20 meter area, preventing any noise from escaping. The effect consumes mana crystals per minute. Sanguine Sage Compendium. Grade, rare. Effect, a compendium filled with knowledge regarding the blood element of the Sanguine Sage. Orion's excitement grew visibly as each of these standout treasures appeared, his eyes gleaming intensely as he suppressed his draconic instincts from resurfacing once again, but this time out of greed rather than frustration. Holy fuck! 2 rare grade treasures, finally. He mentally noted each treasure, their potential uses already spinning scenarios in his head. These particular items weren't simply valuable, they were strategic acquisitions capable of drastically enhancing his capabilities or solving critical problems he might soon encounter. Now this, Orion smiled excitedly, eyes sparkling with genuine satisfaction looking at the 2 rare grade treasures, is exactly what I was hoping to see. Lumi cheerfully agreed, sensing Orion's improved mood. Master, Echo really made up for that rough start. These treasures will be extremely useful, especially that Insight Pearl and the Sword Aura Stone in the short term. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Orion chuckled softly, nodding in agreement. Indeed. Though I suspect Echo enjoys giving me heart attacks before rewarding me. The remaining draws continued smoothly, steadily increasing Orion's stockpile of goods. An assortment of armors, weapons, minor cultivation aids, and various elixirs appeared one after another, ensuring Limitless Heaven's shelves would be stocked for quite some time. Finally, as the last of the draws concluded, Orion exhaled deeply, stretching his body to relieve the slight stiffness from remaining tense throughout the eventful experience. What a ride, Orion murmured tiredly, leaning back heavily against his pillows. The worst and best draws I've ever experienced, all in a single session. Lumi giggled lightly, clearly relieved that Orion's temper had fully subsided. Master, I've noted down every item carefully. Magi will be thrilled, Limitless Heaven will be booming in no time. Orion smiled warmly, feeling genuinely satisfied despite the rocky start. Yes, and we have enough special items to keep me progressing smoothly for a while. All in all, this session turned out better than expected. He paused, rubbing his chin thoughtfully as he mentally reviewed the 9 key treasures. That Dragonvein Insight Pearl, in particular, intrigues me deeply. Such powerful insights into dragon instincts and memories, perhaps it'll hold answers to some of my questions. Lumi excitedly responded. Yes, Master. Your draconic bloodline will surely resonate deeply with it, possibly triggering evolution-related memories. I can't wait to see what you'll experience. For all. Orion's eyes flickered with genuine curiosity as he mentally reviewed each treasure. His gaze paused on the Sanguine Sage Compendium, the second rare-grade treasure he had obtained from the draws. Chapter 207, Sanguine Sage Compendium. The crimson-covered book emitted a subtle but strangely intense aura, almost pulsating gently, radiating a compelling, albeit eerie energy. Sitting upright decisively, Orion summoned the compendium into his hand. The smooth, leather-bound cover was cool yet oddly vibrant to the touch, as if subtly resonating with his heartbeat. Its deep red hue reminded him unmistakably of fresh blood, rich, mysterious, and just a touch unsettling. "Lumi," Orion murmured cautiously, his voice soft yet thoughtful, "this Sanguine sage compendium feels peculiar, doesn't it? Do you know of something like this?" Lumi's voice grew contemplative, clearly intrigued yet cautious herself. "I've never directly seen anything like this either, Master. But given the name of the Sanguine sage, it's surely no ordinary tome. You should probably approach it with caution." Winky face. Nodding slowly in agreement, Orion carefully opened the compendium. As soon as the cover parted, a sudden wave of pungent scent filled the room, a thick, coppery aroma unmistakably reminiscent of blood. Orion's eyes narrowed immediately, his heightened senses reacting sharply as an uncomfortable pressure instantly began to gather around his temples. "This," Orion muttered softly, blinking heavily to clear the sudden dizziness, "this book isn't ordinary at all. The sage definitely placed some powerful enchantment on it." "Master, are you all right?" Lumi asked urgently, her voice tense with concern. "It's nothing serious, just a slight headache from the blood aura. But there's definitely something odd going on here. I'll try reading a little more carefully." Steeling his nerves, Orion focused carefully, flipping to the first page. Immediately, his vision blurred slightly, his mind assaulted by a strange series of twisted runic inscriptions shimmering in crimson ink. The symbols seemed to twist and writhe before his eyes, almost alive with malevolent intent, refusing to settle into anything coherent. Frustration crept across his features as Orion felt the pressure within his skull intensify. He stubbornly pushed onward, determined to comprehend at least something from the page. However, the more he tried, the worse his headache grew, until finally, a sharp stab of pain erupted behind his eyes, forcing him to close the book swiftly. "Ugh!" Orion groaned quietly, pressing his palm against his forehead. "Lumi, what exactly is this?" Search *the novelfire.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Lumi hesitated slightly before offering her speculation. "Master, judging by your reaction, this is probably a high-grade sealing spell placed by the Sanguine sage himself. A common practice for powerful mages to ensure their knowledge only passes to those deemed worthy. Clearly, it's a test of strength and comprehension. Sigma, degree. Orion's expression grew contemplative again, rubbing his temples gently to alleviate the lingering pain. "So that's why it affected me so strongly. I have next to no comprehension of the blood element." He sighed softly, feeling mildly disappointed yet intrigued. "Then, let's try something else, perhaps the Eye of Revelation can help me decipher something from it." "Careful, Master. The Eye of Revelation consumes significant mana the more complex the thing you try to decipher and could further strain you," Lumi warned anxiously. "Don't worry, I'll only glance briefly," Orion reassured calmly. Exhaling slowly to steady himself, he activated his Eye of Revelation skill. Immediately, a vibrant golden glow appeared in his irises, sharpening his vision and unveiling hidden secrets. Yet, the moment he directed the skill toward the compendium, a severe surge of pain erupted within his mind, and his mana visibly drained by at least 5% instantly. The letters briefly shifted into something slightly readable before immediately reverting into incomprehensible, chaotic symbols. Orion groaned sharply, snapping the book shut once more, breathing heavily from the sudden drain of mana. "Damn it, it's still too much." Lumi immediately chimed in, deeply worried. "Master, please don't strain yourself further. Your soul and mana aren't ready yet." Winky face. Orion nodded with disappointment, finally accepting his temporary limitations. "You're right. For now, we'll set this compendium aside. I need to either become stronger or comprehend a little of the blood element from somewhere else." Just then, from inside his mind, a sultry voice came. "Someone seems to be having trouble." Orion raised an eyebrow, while Lumi's scream jumped around Orion as if ready to fight. "It's you! What do you want, you cow dragon? Hee, you seem to be having a problem with the blood element, right?" Orion calmly nodded his head. "Yes, do you have any solution?" Asteraxa's lips curled into an amused smile. "Oh my, why don't you guess what kind of true dragon I was back then?" "A blood dragon, huh?" he softly asked back, picking up the hints she was dropping. "Hee, aren't you quite the smart one?" "Yes, I was one of the blood dragonesses, and quite a high-ranking one at that." "So can you help me learn the blood intent?" he eagerly asked, not giving a damn that she was a dragon of an advanced element as she was now his blood-bound sword. Asteraxa's lips twitched, seeing him ignore her lineage so quickly. Heaving a sigh, she said, "Not quite. You can't wield me yet, and I'm far too damaged to teach you stuff." Lumi and Orion both became speechless hearing her words after the shameless boasting. "But worry not, young man. With your talent and improvement speed, and this weird system of yours, you should be able to reach a sufficiently high level." "Hey! Lumi is not weird." Orion paused. "You don't know about Lumi? About the Limitless system? Or you simply don't have memories of her?" Asteraxa thought for a moment. "No, I don't have any recollection of a Limitless system back then, but I have lost the majority of my memories as well, so I can't be sure about it." Orion heaved a sigh and lay down to rest for a few minutes, sorting out his thoughts regarding the treasures he had just obtained and planning what to do with them. After resting quietly for a few minutes, Orion finally opened his eyes, his thoughts clearer and more focused. He sat up slowly on his plush bed, exhaling softly as he mentally called out to Lumi. "Alright, Lumi, I think it's time we put some of these treasures to good use. First, let's use the Instant Insight Scroll, 9-step quake." Lumi immediately responded with enthusiastic agreement. "Great choice, Master. This skill will surely boost your mobility significantly. Let's go." Orion nodded confidently, retrieving the scroll from his inventory. The parchment appeared delicate, inscribed with shimmering runes that pulsed rhythmically, almost as if eager to release their secrets. He carefully unfolded the scroll, his eyes scanning the elegant runes as they activated, glowing brighter with each passing heartbeat. The scroll instantly dissolved into motes of soft golden light, swiftly flowing into Orion's forehead, causing his sea of consciousness to ripple gently. A profound understanding blossomed within his mind, clear comprehension of the 9-step quake technique. His eyes briefly closed as the intricate footwork method imprinted vividly into his consciousness, merging seamlessly with his instincts. When Orion reopened his eyes, they glinted brightly, reflecting both satisfaction and excitement. "This technique," Orion murmured appreciatively, feeling the powerful yet subtle shifts in his muscles as he envisioned the skill. "It consumes about 10% of my total mana but provides an extreme burst of speed. Exactly the kind of maneuver I need for crucial moments." Chapter 208, Lucan's stomach ache. "Precisely, Master." Lumi excitedly agreed. "Perfect for surprise attacks or running away." Orion chuckled, satisfied with the skill's immediate integration into his arsenal. Next, he gently withdrew the sword aura resonance stone from his inventory, its surface smooth and cool against his palm. The stone emitted a faint but tangible hum, resonating subtly with his mana channels. Carefully, Orion closed his eyes, gently probing the stone's aura with his senses, examining its intricate resonance. Orion thoughtfully murmured, his eyes reopening after a moment of contemplation. "This resonance, it's meant to guide and sharpen comprehension of sword aura, but I'll wait until Edgar formally begins my training before fully utilizing it." Lumi cheerfully concurred, clearly excited about future progress. "Very wise, Master. You should definitely combine it with Edgar's lessons for the best results." Orion carefully returned the stone to his inventory, his expression turning thoughtful as he reviewed the remaining treasures once more. He mentally discussed potential uses and timing for each item with Lumi, ensuring maximum benefit for his growth and the overall prosperity of Limitless Heaven. Feeling refreshed and ready, Orion finally rose from his bed, heading toward the training grounds behind the mansion. Peak afternoon sunlight cast warm, golden hues over the meticulously maintained gardens and expansive training field. The pleasant scent of fresh grass and blooming flowers filled the air, gently calming his mind further. Without delay, Orion began rigorously practicing the newly learned wood element spells. His mana flowed effortlessly through his channels, the newly formed wood affinity rune boosting his spellcasting efficiency significantly. First, Orion summoned the verdant shield, vibrant vines, and leaves quickly emerging to form a resilient, protective barrier. He tested its strength and flexibility, satisfied by its defensive potential. Next, he swiftly transitioned into practicing entangling roots, controlling sturdy, flexible roots to erupt from the earth and entangle imaginary opponents. The roots moved precisely at his mental direction, firmly demonstrating their immobilizing power. Lastly, Orion extensively practiced nature's grasp, smoothly manipulating nearby vegetation, lifting and maneuvering various training objects across the field. His control grew steadily more precise, each repetition enhancing his mana efficiency and spellcasting speed. He then focused on the second-tier and third-tier spells, testing his limits as he cast the Tier 3 spell multiple times with minimal drain on his mana. He also tried the 9-step quake, taking a single step, then accelerating until he finished the 9th step. His body paused as he felt 10% of his mana drain at once. However, the boost in speed he gained was enough to compete with someone at the 5th tier of awakening level. Hours passed unnoticed as Orion immersed himself deeply in spell training, thoroughly enjoying the quiet, steady progress. Finally, as the sun began descending from the sky, bathing everything in late afternoon sunlight, he ceased training, satisfied with the day's productivity. Returning indoors, Orion headed straight for the baths to cleanse away the sweat and dirt accumulated during his intense practice. Entering the spacious bathing chamber, he immediately saw Rune and Fiora patiently awaiting his arrival, their gentle smiles welcoming and comforting. Rune immediately approached, her eyes bright and cheerful. "Welcome back, Master. Shall we help you freshen up?" Orion chuckled softly. "You guys entered the bathroom directly?" "But very well, thank you both." The warm bathwater relaxed Orion deeply, washing away the lingering fatigue. As they assisted him, Orion casually asked with genuine curiosity, "So, what did you two do during the day?" Rena's eyes sparkled with excitement, and she replied happily, "We trained a lot today, Master. Afterward, Fiora and I spent some time reading books in the mansion's library and also headed out of the mansion to the market in the 4th ring to buy some stuff. It was quite fun, we learned a lot." Fiora gently nodded beside her, softly adding, "Yes, Master. There are so many interesting books to read. And there was a lot of good food in the market. It was a good day." At the mention of food, her face took a shade of pink due to the large amount she had eaten during the day. She glanced at Rena with a pleading gaze to not tell Orion about it, as it was embarrassing. Rena giggled and nodded her head. Orion's expression softened further, his heart warmed by their enthusiastic progress. "I'm truly glad to hear it. Continue working hard, you both make me proud." The girls exchanged pleased smiles, clearly delighted by Orion's praise and encouragement. After finishing the relaxing bath, Orion dressed comfortably and stepped out, heading toward the mansion's gardens to look for Edgar. Saw the novelfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. As expected, Edgar was easy to find, calmly enjoying the lingering warmth of the early evening sunlight. Hearing Orion's approach, Edgar opened his eyes, a warm smile immediately forming. "Young Master, done with your training already?" Orion nodded with a satisfied expression, settling comfortably beside Edgar. "Yes, Uncle Edgar. Today was quite productive, I managed to master a few new spells. Now I'm quite proficient in wood spells." Edgar smiled appreciatively, a subtle glint of pride evident in his calm eyes. He shifted slightly in his relaxed posture, clearly interested. "The wood element, That's excellent, young master. It will greatly complement your existing abilities, particularly with your fighting style." Orion smiled in return, glancing toward the softly glowing horizon, painted in gentle hues of orange and violet. The evening breeze whispered gently through the neatly trimmed bushes and vibrant flower beds surrounding them. Orion's voice softened with genuine curiosity as he asked, "What about tomorrow, Uncle Edgar? You mentioned earlier about progressing beyond the basics of swordsmanship. How exactly will we be training? Any special methods in mind?" Edgar's smile deepened enigmatically as he calmly shook his head. His eyes sparkled slightly with quiet amusement as he replied mysteriously, "Ah, young master, tomorrow's training is a surprise. Trust me, it will be far more effective if you experience it directly without prior knowledge." Orion raised an eyebrow, mildly amused by Edgar's unusual secrecy. "Now you have me intrigued. All right then, I trust you, Uncle Edgar. I'll look forward to whatever you have planned." Edgar chuckled softly, clearly enjoying the brief air of mystery he'd created. A comfortable silence settled around them once more, filled only by the gentle rustling of leaves and the soft chirping of distant birds returning to their nests. After a peaceful moment, Orion suddenly remembered Lucan's earlier presence, glancing curiously around the garden. "Speaking of which, Uncle Edgar, where did Brother Lucan disappear to? Wasn't he here with you in the morning?" Edgar's lips curled lightly into a knowing smile as he nodded toward the front gate of the mansion grounds. "That brat Lucan mentioned he was feeling hungry and stepped out briefly. He should be returning any moment now." Orion's expression turned into mild amusement, shaking his head gently as he rose from his comfortable seat. "Always about food with him, isn't it?" As if summoned by their conversation, Lucan suddenly appeared, walking leisurely toward them with a freshly grilled meat skewer in his hand, casually savoring every bite. His relaxed and satisfied expression clearly reflected his enjoyment of the food, seemingly oblivious to their mildly amused gazes. Orion and Edgar exchanged knowing looks, simultaneously shaking their heads in mild disbelief at Lucan's contrasting behaviors, lazy during everything but exceptionally active when it came to food. Chapter 209, Giving a Shock to Magi. Lucan noticed their expressions, and his cheeks reddened slightly, though he stubbornly continued eating. "What? A man needs proper nutrition to maintain peak performance, you know." Orion chuckled softly, amused but deciding not to tease him further. Instead, he directly shifted to his current objective. "Brother Lucan, since you've finished your snack, accompany us to the marketplace. I need to check on Magi and have some things I need to talk with him about." Lucan instantly perked up, quickly finishing his remaining skewer with remarkable enthusiasm. "The marketplace? Sounds good to me. Let's go then." Edgar calmly nodded, rising from his seat. "Understood, young master. Allow me to accompany you." Orion smiled appreciatively, and the trio walked leisurely toward the mansion's main building. Inside the mansion, Lucan quickly retrieved the luxurious obsidian carriage, sleek, polished black, with intricate silver runes etched delicately along its surface. The vehicle practically radiated understated elegance and status. After swiftly boarding, Orion, Edgar, and Lucan departed from the mansion, the carriage smoothly gliding toward the marketplace at the fourth ring of the royal capital. Meanwhile, far from the bustling royal capital, under the cover of the rapidly darkening evening, a small group quietly gathered within the dense foliage of an isolated forest clearing. Their figures were rugged and tense, exuding a dangerous aura that seemed second nature to them. Their leader, an elderly yet powerfully built man, stood at the center, his piercing gaze filled with cold cunning as he quietly addressed his subordinate. "Are you absolutely certain the information is accurate?" The subordinate, a rough, muscular man with multiple battle scars marking his weathered features, quickly nodded his head in affirmation. His voice was deep, rough, and filled with unwavering confidence. "Yes, boss. My source is trustworthy. There's definitely an unguarded dragonling residing in the royal capital of Thunder Peak Kingdom. Even better, no noble houses seem to officially claim her." The elderly leader's expression darkened with contemplation, greed flickering vividly within his narrowed eyes. A murmur spread rapidly through the gathered men, excitement palpable at the mere mention of a female draconian. Another member of the group stepped forward, unable to contain his enthusiasm, his voice trembling with barely restrained eagerness. "Boss, Do you understand how much we could fetch from the black market for a female draconian? It would set us up for life. The profit would be unimaginable. The elderly leader smiled chillingly, his calculating gaze swiftly assessing his subordinates, his voice commanding and authoritative. Exactly. Which is why we must proceed carefully. The capital is heavily guarded, but their focus will be on noble families and important locations. We must strike quickly, silently, without alerting the guards until it's too late. A solemn silence settled briefly over the group before each man resolutely nodded, eyes filled with determination and greed. The leader nodded approvingly, quickly formulating their plan. Very well. Prepare yourselves, we move under the cover of darkness. Once inside the capital, we split into smaller groups to avoid drawing suspicion. Remember, swift and quiet. No mistakes. His subordinates swiftly murmured their agreement, quickly dispersing to make final preparations. The elderly leader stood alone momentarily, his cold eyes gleaming sharply in the fading twilight, already envisioning the vast wealth awaiting them. The scene shifted back once more to the royal capital's marketplace, just as the obsidian carriage gently halted near the lively, crowded entrance. Lanterns cast warm, inviting glows upon bustling vendors and enthusiastic shoppers enjoying the early evening ambience. Orion stepped down from the carriage first, closely followed by Edgar. Lucan stepped down last, however, just as he took one step on the ground, he dropped to his knees, clutching his stomach. Orion and Edgar stared at Lucan in synchronized silence, their expressions utterly deadpan and devoid of any sympathy. Lucan remained dramatically kneeling, clutching his stomach with exaggerated agony as passers-by began casting puzzled glances their way. Ugh, why young master, it looks like I won't be able to accompany you, Lucan groaned pitifully, glancing upward with pleading eyes. Orion sighed deeply, his lips twitching in annoyance as he shared a silent, knowing look with Edgar. This scenario was all too familiar to them. One thing or another happened to Lucan whenever physical exertion or any form of genuine responsibility loomed on the horizon. Ignoring Lucan's dramatics entirely, Orion turned calmly and began walking into the bustling marketplace, Edgar smoothly falling into step beside him. Wait. Young master. Lucan called weakly from behind them, still bent over theatrically. Let's leave him there, Uncle Edgar. Orion spoke casually, his tone dismissive yet playful, fully accustomed to Lucan's lazy antics. Edgar chuckled softly in response, nodding in agreement. The vibrant atmosphere of the marketplace enveloped them comfortably as they moved further inward. Warm amber lights from hanging lanterns illuminated the stalls, showcasing brightly colored fabrics, fragrant food, and glistening artifacts. Pleasant, lively chatter filled the air as vendors enthusiastically peddled their wares, customers eagerly haggling or simply enjoying the festive ambience. Yet Orion and Edgar paid little heed to the bustling crowds, moving purposefully toward their destination, Limitless Heaven. Search the novel, F.ir.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Limitless Heaven stood prominently in the market, its elegant exterior adorned with beautiful banners and well-dressed attendants welcoming customers inside. Approaching the store, the stationed guards immediately recognized Orion and Edgar, bowing respectfully and stepping aside without a word. Inside, the attendants likewise offered polite nods and greetings, though none made any attempt to halt Orion's steady progress toward the third floor. Arriving swiftly at Magi's private office, Orion reached for the ornate wooden door without hesitation, pushing it open and stepping confidently inside. The sight before him, however, briefly halted him in his tracks. Magi, normally flamboyant and perpetually carefree, sat quietly behind his desk with a rare tenderness visible in his gaze. The object of his gaze was Luna, the delicate white bunny typically perched lazily on his shoulder. Magi gently stroked her soft fur, a serene expression on his usually mischievous face. The unexpected gentleness almost startled Orion, yet he quickly recovered, his lips curling into a faint smirk. Hearing the door open, Magi raised his head with exaggerated indignation, his playful grin returning instantly. Oi, Boss Orion, shouldn't you at least knock? What if I was engaging in some extreme physical activity in here, Magi teased, waggling his eyebrows suggestively. Orion's lips twitched involuntarily, his expression a blend of exasperation and annoyance as he responded calmly, "If I ever caught you doing something like that here, Magi, I'd throw you out of the shop myself." Magi laughed heartily, clearly delighted by Orion's blunt retort. He leaned back casually, gently placing Luna onto the desk beside him, allowing her to nibble lazily on a piece of carrot. "Fair enough, boss, fair enough. But jokes aside, how come you're here again so soon? If you're looking for more mana crystals, I'm afraid you've arrived at a bad time. Nearly everything we have is already tied up in running this place and acquiring new stock." Orion sighed softly, shaking his head in mild exasperation at Magi's assumption. Without further ado, he retrieved the spatial ring he had prepared earlier, its surface gleaming faintly with stored mana. With a casual toss, Orion gently threw the ring onto Magi's desk, watching as Magi's eyes immediately widened with intense curiosity. Chapter 210, Asking Grandpa for Teaching. "Take a look first," Orion instructed calmly. "Let me know if that'll be sufficient to keep Limitless Heaven running comfortably." Magi immediately infused mana into the ring, his expression rapidly shifting from curiosity to surprise, then to outright excitement. "Boss Orion! This is incredible. With this much stock, we can easily run Limitless Heaven not merely for a few days, but for weeks, maybe even longer if we manage it carefully. Not only that, we can maintain a solid reputation by continuously offering high-quality goods." Sar the Novel Fire. Any *T website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Orion nodded appreciatively, satisfied by Magi's enthusiastic reaction. "Then I'll leave it all to you, Magi. Continue doing what you do best, and make sure Limitless Heaven remains a premier establishment in Thunder Peak." Magi offered an exaggerated yet sincere bow, smiling broadly. "Of course, boss. Rest assured, your trust will be well placed." Orion lingered briefly, exchanging a few additional details with Magi about future plans, restocking strategies, and potential new acquisitions. The conversation was quick yet comprehensive, clearly demonstrating Magi's competence and dedication despite his playful demeanor. Finally, Orion turned to Edgar, signaling his readiness to depart. Edgar nodded respectfully, quietly falling into step beside Orion as they left Magi's office. Descending through Limitless Heaven's lively floors once more, Edgar glanced sideways at Orion curiously and asked, "Young master, might I ask, those treasures you handed Magi earlier, they were quite numerous. If I might inquire, where exactly did you acquire them?" Orion smiled mysteriously, clearly not having any plans to disclose the gotcha. "I have my ways, Uncle Edgar. Let's just say fortune favored me recently." Edgar smiled faintly, shaking his head slowly with quiet amusement, accepting Orion's vague explanation without further questioning. Their relationship had always been built on trust and respect, and Edgar clearly knew when to press further and when to simply let matters lie. Exiting the marketplace, Orion and Edgar returned swiftly to the obsidian carriage, finding Lucan now comfortably lounging against its side, miraculously recovered from his earlier stomachache. Orion ignored Lucan's sheepish grin entirely, merely stepping into the carriage without comment, Edgar following suit. The ride home was smooth and uneventful, the rhythmic clip-clop of horse hooves blending softly with the gentle evening breeze. Twilight deepened gradually into darkness as they reached the mansion, its familiar lights glowing warmly and welcoming. Upon reaching the mansion, Orion swiftly stepped down from the obsidian carriage, feeling the familiar, comforting atmosphere of home wash over him. The cool evening breeze rustled softly through the nearby trees, carrying with it the fragrant scent of blooming flowers from the garden. "Uncle Edgar, Brother Lucan, thank you both. I'll head inside first," Orion said warmly, offering Edgar a respectful nod and Lucan a dry, pointed glance. Lucan sheepishly rubbed the back of his neck, feigning innocence as Edgar merely shook his head in quiet amusement. Orion quickly moved indoors, making his way to the wash basin to cleanse his hands. The cool water refreshed him, washing away the day's lingering traces before he made his way toward the dining hall. The dining room was softly illuminated by gentle, flickering candlelight, casting inviting golden hues upon the polished wooden table laden with dishes. Eldrick and Celine were already seated, quietly chatting and awaiting Orion's arrival. Seeing Orion enter, their faces immediately brightened with genuine warmth. "Welcome home, dear," Celine greeted affectionately, her voice gentle and warm as always. "We were just talking about you." Eldrick nodded with a smile, gesturing toward an empty seat across from them. "Sit down, lad. Dinner is ready, and I imagine you must be hungry after your trip." Orion smiled back appreciatively, settling comfortably into his chair. The aroma of freshly prepared dishes wafted pleasantly through the room, immediately igniting his appetite. "Thank you, Grandpa, Grandma," Orion replied softly, feeling calm come to his mind after a long day of events. As they began to eat, Celine turned toward Orion, curiosity glimmering gently within her eyes. "So, how was your day, dear?" she inquired warmly, serving him a generous portion of roasted meat alongside fresh vegetables. "Did you enjoy your outing?" Orion nodded, taking a bite and savoring the flavorful meal before responding thoughtfully, "Yes, it was quite productive. Limitless heaven is well stocked now, thanks to the treasures I managed to acquire." Magi seems more excited than ever. Eldrick chuckled softly, shaking his head lightly. "That boy Magi. As eccentric as ever. But I suppose he does have his uses." Orion smiled knowingly, exchanging a look with Eldrick. Then his expression turned slightly more serious, and he leaned forward slightly. "Actually, Grandfather, there's something else I wanted to ask. Now that I've established my fire and wood affinity runes, I'd like to begin training in the thunder element next. Would you be willing to guide me?" Eldrick's eyes lit up instantly, a proud smile spreading warmly across his face. He glanced triumphantly toward Celine, unable to hide the smug delight shining clearly within his gaze. "Haha. Did you hear that, Celine? Your grandson specifically asked to learn from me." Eldrick puffed out his chest playfully, clearly savoring this rare moment of victory. "It seems he recognizes my superior knowledge when it comes to thunder magic." Celine rolled her eyes affectionately, though her lips curled into a playful smile. "Of course he will ask you. You think I'm a thunder mage? If I was, then he would have definitely asked me." Orion chuckled softly at their playful banter, feeling deeply comforted by their genuine warmth. He patiently waited until Eldrick's triumphant expression subsided slightly before calmly reiterating, "Grandpa, will you teach me then?" Eldrick grinned brightly, nodding firmly as pride gleamed in his eyes. "Of course, brat. Starting tomorrow morning, we shall begin your thunder element training in earnest. Be prepared, it won't be easy." Orion smiled with confidence, anticipation already burning within him. "Haha, don't get shocked by my talent tomorrow, I'll be ready." The remainder of the meal passed comfortably, filled with warm laughter and affectionate exchanges. Orion felt content enough that he wouldn't mind if this moment lasted longer. After finishing the pleasant dinner, Orion rose gently from his seat, offering his grandparents a respectful smile. "Thank you for the meal, Grandpa, Grandma. It was delicious." Celine returned his smile warmly, while Eldrick chuckled softly, giving a playful wave of his hand. "Rest well, lad. Tomorrow's training won't be easy, I promise." Orion laughed lightly, shaking his head in affectionate amusement. "I'll hold you to that promise, Grandpa." Exiting the dining room, Orion walked quietly through the softly illuminated corridors toward Seraph's chamber. The mansion was calmingly silent now, save for the faint echoes of his steady footsteps. Upon reaching Seraph's door, Orion paused briefly, gently knocking before entering with a soft, welcoming smile. Inside, Seraph sat quietly beside the window, bathed gently in soft moonlight. Her emerald eyes slowly turned toward Orion, a subtle warmth appearing within their depths, though her expression remained faintly distant. Orion calmly took a seat across from her, settling comfortably into the chair. "Good evening, Seraph," Orion greeted softly, his voice gentle and soothing. "It's been quite a long day. I hope yours went well?" Seraph offered a subtle nod, her gaze fixed quietly upon Orion, clearly listening even though she did not speak. Chapter 211, Learning Runes. Orion's eyes softened with understanding as he continued quietly, sharing details of his busy day, his marketplace visit, and his playful exchanges with Eldrick and Celine. Throughout his gentle recounting, Seraph occasionally nodded in quiet acknowledgement, her normally tense posture visibly relaxing as she listened attentively. Her emerald eyes slowly regained their usual warmth, yet her lips remained without a smile, an expression Orion hoped to eventually restore. After finishing his stories, Orion sat quietly for a moment longer, simply enjoying the calm and comfortable silence shared between them. Eventually, he softly rose, gently placing a comforting hand upon her shoulder for a moment. "Rest well tonight, Seraph," Orion said gently, his voice filled with sincere warmth. "We'll talk again tomorrow." Seraph's gaze softened further as she nodded slowly, quietly appreciative of Orion's unwavering kindness and understanding. Orion stepped quietly from her room, closing the door gently behind him. Returning to his own chamber, Orion exhaled softly, settling comfortably onto his plush bed, feeling the weight of the day's numerous activities finally catching up with him. He closed his eyes momentarily, relaxing deeply into the soft mattress. Lumi hopes Master isn't overexerting himself again. Today was quite busy, wasn't it? Degree winky face. Orion smiled faintly, eyes still closed. Indeed, Lumi. Busy but packed with good stuff. I'm finally starting my thunder training tomorrow. Ooh, exciting. I can't wait to see you shock everyone with your talent. Greater than over equal to 4 all less than over equal to. He chuckled softly, opening his eyes again and rising slowly from the bed, stretching lightly to relieve any lingering tension. Speaking of talent, I should really stop procrastinating on those runes. Learning them only when I need them is becoming troublesome. Yes, Master. Mastering all the runes beforehand would certainly make things easier later on. Let's do it step by step. Orion nodded firmly, walking calmly toward his windowside study table. He settled comfortably into his chair, neatly arranging various scrolls and parchments across the polished wooden surface, his expression serious yet determined. Indeed. Let's begin tonight. I'll try to memorize and familiarize myself thoroughly with each rune as soon as possible. I should be able to do it in a few days. Lumi's screen sparkled brightly with cheerful excitement. Great decision, Master. Let's get started. Caret. Orion immersed himself completely in the thick runic codex, gently illuminated by the soft glow of a magical lamp beside him. Outside, the serene night sky stretched endlessly, stars scattered gently across its deep expanse, casting faint reflections upon the polished surface of his desk. With meticulous focus, Orion carefully traced his fingers along each rune diagram, before drawing them on the parchment paper that Edgar had given him before, as Lumi's screen hovered close by, cheerfully assisting whenever he paused or hesitated. Master, your learning speed is impressive as always. For all. Xianxia the Nefire. At website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Orion lightly smiled at Lumi's encouragement, his eyes not leaving the intricate runes. It's easier now, after having learned all those runes before. The patterns and logic behind them feel more intuitive. Hours quietly slipped by as Orion methodically familiarized himself with each rune, repeating them over and over until the symbols felt deeply ingrained within his mind. Occasionally, he would pause briefly to rest his eyes or sip some cool water, yet his determination never wavered. Eventually, the moon rose high overhead, casting silvery beams softly into the room, illuminating Orion's slightly weary yet satisfied expression. Having reached his goal for the night, he gently closed the heavy codex, stretching leisurely as he finally stood up from the desk. All right, Lumi, that should be enough for tonight. Time to get some sleep. Good work today, Master. Sweet dreams, greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Orion chuckled softly, extinguishing the magical lamp and making his way to bed. He settled comfortably beneath the soft sheets, letting out a contented sigh as exhaustion quickly claimed him. The next morning, Orion awoke slowly, feeling oddly heavier than usual. Sunlight already streamed brightly through the window, indicating he had slept longer than normal. Lumi's cheerful voice rang softly in his mind as he rubbed the lingering sleepiness from his eyes. Master, you overslept again. Lumi really thinks this might be related to your upcoming evolution. Orion shook his head lightly, rising from the bed and stretching to loosen his muscles. Perhaps you're right, Lumi, but let's not dwell too much on it for now. He made his way swiftly to the washroom to get fresh before coming back to the room. Moments later, a gentle knock signaled the arrival of Rune and Fiora, their soft greetings echoing cheerfully as they helped him bathe and dress. Fresh and fully awake, Orion stepped out of his room and headed directly to the dining hall, the enticing aroma of breakfast already greeting him warmly. Entering the hall, he saw Celine seated elegantly, waiting patiently at the table. Good morning, Grandma, Orion greeted warmly, taking his usual seat across from her. Where's Grandpa? Celine smiled softly, gently passing him a plate filled with freshly baked bread and a generous serving of eggs. Your grandfather went to organize some books he insists you'll need for your thunder training. He should be here shortly. As if perfectly timed, Eldrick entered the dining room just as Celine finished speaking. He looked slightly excited for the lecture ahead, his eyes twinkling as he approached and settled comfortably beside Celine. Finally finished organizing those blasted books, Eldrick grumbled good-naturedly, serving himself a hearty portion of breakfast. He then pointed playfully at Orion, a mischievous smile crossing his lips. Eat up, lad. You're going to need all the energy you can muster. I won't let you leave until I'm thoroughly satisfied with your progress. Orion chuckled lightly, nodding with confidence and anticipation as he quickly finished his meal. I'm looking forward to it, Grandpa. Don't hold back. Once breakfast concluded, Orion rose eagerly, following Eldrick as they left the dining hall together and headed straight for Eldrick's study, anticipation building as he wondered what books Eldrick had prepared for him. Entering Eldrick's study, Orion glanced around curiously. The room was spacious and orderly, filled with neatly arranged shelves of thick books, scrolls, and various magical artifacts meticulously placed on display. Gentle rays of sunlight filtered through the ornate windows, casting warm illumination upon the polished wooden surfaces. Eldrick moved briskly toward one of the larger shelves, his fingers tracing swiftly along the spines of several thick volumes before carefully selecting 3 exceptionally hefty tomes. He turned around, carrying the large stack with surprising ease, and placed them heavily onto the study table in front of Orion. These are the fundamental texts regarding the lightning element, Eldrick announced seriously, his gaze firm yet encouraging. Each contains comprehensive knowledge, from basic mana pathways and elemental theory, to complex rune formations and core principles governing thunder magic. I want you to read them thoroughly and memorize as much as you can before we start practicing. Orion didn't hesitate nor question Eldrick's instructions, he simply nodded firmly, reaching immediately for the topmost book. Despite their intimidating thickness, he felt nothing but anticipation, his determination unwavering. Orion gently opened the first book, revealing dense pages covered with intricate diagrams and detailed text that precisely explained the lightning element's characteristics. Eldrick, seemingly satisfied by Orion's immediate acceptance, took a comfortable seat directly across from him, carefully studying his grandson's expression. Chapter 212, reading books. Though he held high expectations of Orion, Eldrick fully expected the vast amount of complex knowledge to challenge even the greatest prodigy. He quietly anticipated the moment when Orion might show signs of hesitation or difficulty. Yet, contrary to Eldrick's silent expectation, Orion demonstrated nothing but absolute focus. Page after page, his sharp eyes moved swiftly and intently, absorbing every detail, every diagram, and every theory carefully explained in the thick volumes. Time passed quietly, the only sounds in the study the gentle rustle of turning pages and the steady breathing of both grandfather and grandson. Eldrick gradually began to feel a mixture of astonishment and disbelief as he noted Orion's continuous, steady progress without even a hint of slowing down. He subtly straightened his posture, leaning forward slightly as if expecting Orion to show signs of fatigue at any moment. But Orion never faltered. After several hours of deep concentration, Orion closed the third and final book with a satisfied sigh, gently placing it back atop the completed pile. He stretched his arms leisurely, easing the stiffness from hours of intense reading, before looking up with a clear, calm gaze. Finished, Grandpa, Orion stated plainly, his voice steady and confident. Eldrick blinked twice, momentarily at a loss for words. Surprise flashed vividly across his aged features, swiftly replaced by skepticism. He cleared his throat, narrowing his eyes carefully, examining Orion's unwavering expression. Are you absolutely certain you've thoroughly absorbed all the material, Orion? Those books contained enough knowledge to take even geniuses several days, at minimum. Orion nodded confidently, unshaken by Eldrick's incredulity. Yes, Grandpa, I'm quite certain. Although, I do have a few questions I'd like clarified before we proceed. Eldrick visibly relaxed, letting out a soft sigh of relief as his expression quickly shifted from skepticism back to eager pride. Ah, good lad, good. Of course, ask whatever you wish. Clarifying your doubts is part of mastering an element. Orion quickly opened the first book again, turning expertly to a specific page he had memorized precisely. Here, Grandpa, in the chapter about mana conductivity, it states that lightning mana primarily travels along specific pathways to achieve the highest speed and potency. But would alternate pathways exist that sacrifice speed for greater stability in casting more complex formations? Eldrick's eyes brightened appreciatively, clearly impressed by the depth of Orion's question. He leaned forward, placing one finger thoughtfully upon his chin. An insightful observation, Orion. Yes, indeed there are alternate pathways. They're rarely used precisely because thunder magic's greatest advantage lies in its speed. However, in complex spell arrays requiring sustained stability, such as long-duration field control, alternate pathways can be employed to manage fluctuations. Orion nodded eagerly, quickly flipping through the second volume. That explains something else I read here. The secondary rune arrangement used in field control spells seems to intentionally delay mana flow slightly. So, it's purposely done to increase the stability at the expense of immediate response. Eldrick nodded vigorously, a proud grin spreading across his face. Exactly, Orion. That's precisely the reason. Thunder is inherently volatile, swift, and aggressive. But experienced thunder mages learn to temper its wildness with controlled delays and regulated mana flow, greatly increasing versatility. Orion's eyes sparkled, clearly enjoying this detailed conversation. Fascinating. Another thing, regarding the resonance phenomenon mentioned here. Is it possible for thunder mana to inadvertently cause resonance with mana channels primarily used for other elements? Indeed, Eldrick responded seriously, deeply pleased by Orion's precise understanding. Thunder mana is unique. Its highly energetic and disruptive nature can occasionally resonate with or even influence mana channels tuned to other elements. That's why it's critically important to precisely control your mana flow and establish clear channel delineations when wielding multiple affinities. With Master's primal mana channels, there will be no such issues. Asterisk greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Orion ignored Lumi for now and instead absorbed Eldrick's explanation thoughtfully, clearly internalizing every word. I see. That makes sense. Lastly, I was curious about these unusual rune variants here. He pointed at a complex diagram. They seem modified compared to standard lightning runes. Eldrick smiled warmly, his eyes flashing with recognition at his grandson's growing understanding of the lightning element. Ah, those are specialized variants developed by mages from the Mage Tower focusing on defensive applications. They slightly reduce the rune's aggressive potency, instead enhancing mana sustainability, suitable for defensive thunder barriers. But it's a more obscure path, as most don't bother to learn this. Orion's curiosity seemed sated for the moment, his expression calm yet eager. Thank you, Grandpa. Those explanations cleared all my doubts. Eldrick leaned back comfortably, thoroughly satisfied. You are damn impressive, lad. With such comprehension, no wonder you managed to learn both fire and wood so quickly. I and the old hag were wondering how you managed to learn both of them in such a little time. Now I see how. Orion lightly smiled and asked, What's next, Grandpa? I feel like I'm ready to start practicing the Thunder Affinity rune. Eldrick looked at Orion thoughtfully for some time, determining if he was ready for forming the Thunder Affinity rune yet or not. After a moment's silent contemplation, Eldrick finally nodded slowly, a subtle yet proud smile forming at the edges of his lips. Well, since you're feeling confident, let's not waste this momentum. I'll provide you with the 3 foundational runes commonly employed in Thunder Affinity runes, and you can select the remaining runes yourself from the runes you've already learned. Orion's expression lit up, anticipation clear within his eyes. Thank you, Grandpa. I'm ready whenever you are. Eldrick stood up from his seat and moved to a nearby shelf, retrieving a neatly stored scroll. Carefully unrolling it onto the polished surface of the table, Eldrick pointed toward 3 distinct runes clearly illustrated upon the parchment. Each rune was intricate and precise, resonating vividly with the turbulent yet refined essence of thunder. These 3 runes, Thunder, Flow, and Stabilize, are critical for any well-structured Thunder Affinity rune, Eldrick explained methodically. Thunder provides the core essence, Flow guides the current along the path, and Stabilize ensures control, tempering the volatility. Orion examined each rune carefully, imprinting their designs deeply into his mind. He quickly selected 6 additional runes from his mental library: Amplify, Speed, Channel, Sharpen, Shock, and Reinforce, to complete his Thunder Affinity rune set. Satisfied with his selection, Orion retrieved the high-grade parchments previously given by Celine. Its smooth, mana-infused surface shimmered faintly beneath his fingers, ready to accept and accurately record rune formations. Taking a slow, calming breath, Orion dipped his verdant root quill and began carefully inscribing the runes onto the parchment. His first attempt was rather good but slightly hesitant due to unfamiliarity with the Affinity rune. Eldrick immediately leaned closer, his gaze sharp and discerning as he gently indicated Orion's mistakes. Careful here, Orion. When connecting channel and flow, maintain smoother mana circulation. Thunder mana must glide fluidly without excessive turbulence. Orion nodded immediately, absorbing Eldrick's instructions. Determinedly, he commenced his second attempt. This time, he was much more confident with some experience already, the corrections clearly reflected. Every rune became fluid yet deliberate, perfectly encapsulating Thunder's energetic vibrance. By his third attempt, Orion's confidence was evident, each stroke swift yet meticulous, each rune connecting harmoniously. The entire sequence displayed remarkable clarity and stability, and Eldrick watched approvingly, pride glowing vividly within his aged eyes. Sar the Ovalfire.at website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Chapter 213, Learning the Affinity Rune impressive, Eldrick remarked softly, clearly satisfied. You've already reached decent mastery. Usually, even prodigious talents need several dozen attempts. You're certainly living up to your reputation. Orion exhaled gently, a quiet sense of fulfillment warming his chest. He glanced up at Eldrick, feeling quite confident. Grandpa, I'd like to form my Thunder Affinity rune immediately. Rest can wait until afterward. Eldrick hesitated slightly, concern briefly flashing across his expression before ultimately nodding with understanding. If you feel confident and ready, lad, then proceed. But listen carefully, don't try to force the lightning. Remember, control and balance are paramount. I understand, Orion responded calmly. Eldrick stood back, granting Orion space to fully concentrate. Orion calmly walked to the meditation mat positioned conveniently within Eldrick's study, settling comfortably into a cross-legged posture. He closed his eyes, focusing inward and swiftly entering his expansive sea of consciousness. Search *the novelfire.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Inside the boundless azure realm of his consciousness, Orion immediately navigated toward the brightly glowing orbs representing his elemental affinities. Carefully, he isolated the Thunder Affinity orb, brilliantly vibrant, crackling energetically with potent arcs of lightning mana, and gently separated it from the rest, creating ample space for the delicate formation process. Instinctively, he began crafting the origin glyph atop the orb. His mental touch guided mana smoothly, the foundational glyph manifesting effortlessly, deeply resonating with his innate comprehension of Thunder's fundamental nature. Once the origin glyph settled stably, Orion methodically arranged the 9 selected runes around the orb. Thunder, Flow, and Stabilize glowed vibrantly at their positions, interwoven seamlessly alongside Amplify, Speed, Channel, Sharpen, Shock, and Reinforce, each rune beautifully balanced and clearly defined. Drawing on his potent mana control, Orion carefully began connecting the runes with intricate mana pathways, allowing thunder mana to pulse fluidly through each channel. After that, he expertly inscribed the delicate runic inscriptions upon the arrangement. Finally, Orion commenced the crucial final step, merging the origin glyph, rune arrangement, mana channels, and runic inscriptions into a cohesive whole. He delicately guided his mana, carefully fusing each layer together. The resulting Thunder Affinity rune shone brilliantly, emitting an intense, vibrant aura of pure lightning energy, harmoniously balanced and fully integrated into his sea of consciousness. Feeling satisfaction and relief, Orion gently withdrew his consciousness from within, opening his eyes slowly in the physical world. Eldrick stood quietly nearby, observing Orion intently. Upon noticing Orion's calm yet triumphant expression, Eldrick immediately smiled with pride and satisfaction. "Well done, Orion," Eldrick spoke warmly, his voice filled with genuine pride. "Your progression in a single day is really something else. You formed your Thunder Affinity rune in a single day. I must tell this to Celine, haha. And you must rest now. Advancing too swiftly can strain your soul and mana channels." Orion nodded calmly, accepting Eldrick's sincere advice without protest. He rose from the meditation mat, carefully stretching to relieve stiffness from prolonged sitting. "Thank you, Grandpa," Orion replied warmly, feeling a little happy seeing his grandpa so proud and excited to tell his grandma about it. "I'll take your advice and rest now." Eldrick smiled approvingly, his gaze affectionate and proud. "Good lad. Now go, rest well. You've more than earned it today." Orion respectfully inclined his head toward Eldrick before quietly departing from the study. Walking down the softly illuminated corridor, he reflected thoughtfully on his rapid progress and newfound mastery. Reaching his own room, he stepped inside and quietly closed the door behind him. Lying comfortably upon his plush bed, Orion closed his eyes for a moment, allowing himself a brief respite from the intense concentration and mental exertion of the day. The soft sensation of the silken sheets gently embraced him, easing the lingering tension from his muscles. A deep, slow breath slipped from his lips as his thoughts gradually cleared, leaving him feeling calm yet pleasantly exhausted. "Master, you did absolutely amazing today." "For all." Lumi's cheerful voice resonated gently within his consciousness, breaking the soothing silence. Her screen hovered playfully near him, emitting a faint, comforting glow. "Thank you, Lumi," Orion replied quietly, opening his eyes and staring contemplatively at the ceiling. "Honestly, I didn't expect to progress this quickly either. Grandpa's guidance certainly made everything easier." "Hee, you're being modest again, Master." Lumi giggled lightly, her virtual screen bobbing joyfully. "It was mostly your hard work and talent." Even Grandpa couldn't hide his astonishment. Orion chuckled softly at her exuberance, the faintest hint of a smile forming on his lips. "Perhaps, but Grandpa's experience and careful explanations helped immensely. Every detail he shared was invaluable." He lay there for a while longer, idly chatting with Lumi about various aspects of rune formations, elemental interactions, and future training plans. Time passed unnoticed in the comfortable stillness, and gradually Orion felt renewed motivation building within him. After several peaceful minutes, he pushed himself upright, stretching leisurely. "Alright, Lumi, let's not waste the day. I should continue mastering the remaining runes, no point in delaying it further." "Of course, Master. I'm ready whenever you are." Lumi eagerly responded, clearly pleased with his decision. Orion rose smoothly from his bed, stepping lightly toward his windowside study table. He settled comfortably into the well-worn wooden chair, spreading various scrolls and parchments neatly across the polished surface. Opening the runic codex once more, he began diligently absorbing and practicing each intricate rune symbol again. Hours drifted by unnoticed, the only sounds within the room being the faint scratching of his quill against parchment and the quiet rustle of turning pages. Eventually, feeling a slight mental fatigue creeping in, Orion carefully set down his verdant root quill, flexing his fingers lightly to ease their stiffness. He exhaled slowly, satisfied with his progress but recognizing the importance of pacing himself. "It's about time I take a break," Orion murmured, rising from the chair and stretching his limbs fully. "I've done enough for now." "Yes, Master, you shouldn't overdo it." Lumi chimed in supportively, clearly relieved at his decision. Refreshed by his brief rest, Orion made his way leisurely through the mansion and toward the gardens. Stepping outside, he was greeted by the gentle warmth of sunlight, the fresh, floral fragrance of the gardens instantly relaxing him. As expected, Edgar and Lucan were lounging lazily in their favorite spot beneath the broad branches of an ancient tree, basking leisurely in the afternoon sun. Approaching the pair, Orion raised an eyebrow in playful amusement. "Comfortable, Uncle Edgar, Brother Lucan?" Edgar opened his eyes lazily, chuckling softly at Orion's mild teasing. "Quite, young master. You've come looking for me, I presume?" Orion nodded, a determined glint in his eyes. "Indeed, Uncle Edgar. I wanted to ask about today's sword training. You mentioned something special. What exactly have you prepared?" Edgar's lips curled upward mysteriously, his eyes twinkling knowingly as he rose smoothly to his feet. "You'll soon find out, young master. Come with me to the training grounds." Lucan, who had been quietly enjoying the warmth, grinned smugly and quickly stood as well, stretching lazily. Orion raised an eyebrow skeptically, eyeing Lucan's relaxed demeanor. "Why is this lazy bum joining us?" Orion questioned dryly, casting a pointed glance at Lucan. Lucan merely smirked, utterly unbothered by Orion's skepticism. "Just wait and see, young master," Edgar chuckled cryptically. "Lucan might surprise you." Chapter 214, Using the Stone. Orion shrugged lightly, following Edgar and Lucan to the expansive training grounds behind the mansion. The area was quiet and peaceful, bordered by neatly trimmed hedges and shaded by tall trees, the soft grass underfoot providing a perfect footing for practice. Sar the novel, FIR.NT website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Once within the spacious training area, each man retrieved their respective swords. Orion gripped his obsidian longsword firmly, its weight perfectly balanced in his grasp. Edgar calmly held his own sword, stance relaxed yet poised, while Lucan confidently unsheathed a slender blade, his expression unexpectedly sharp and focused. Edgar turned toward Orion, his demeanor shifting to a serious instructor. "Young master, you've shown exceptional skill in one-on-one combat. Now, however, it's essential you learn to handle multiple opponents simultaneously. Lucan and I will both engage you together, matching ourselves to your level and strength, not realm, given how much stronger you are compared to ordinary awakeners of your tier." Orion nodded firmly, immediately understanding the intent behind Edgar's training method. "Understood, Uncle Edgar. I'll do my best." With no further ado, Edgar and Lucan moved fluidly into position, their gazes sharp and unwavering. Orion adjusted his stance, his breathing steady and controlled as he mentally prepared himself for the coming challenge. "Begin," Edgar commanded clearly. Instantly, Orion felt pressure from two simultaneous angles. Edgar's sword flashed swiftly, aiming carefully toward Orion's right side, while Lucan moved agilely, striking directly from Orion's left with surprising speed. Caught slightly off guard by their coordinated approach, Orion reacted instinctively. He swiftly pivoted, narrowly deflecting Edgar's precise strike with a hurried parry, only to find Lucan already upon him, his blade slicing dangerously close. Forced into a defensive stance, Orion rapidly retreated, struggling to maintain his composure against the relentless onslaught. The coordinated teamwork between Edgar and Lucan overwhelmed him repeatedly, his defense gradually faltering against their well-synchronized attacks. Sweat beaded lightly upon Orion's brow as he maintained constant vigilance, swiftly analyzing each strike pattern and their collaborative rhythm. Each exchange taught him valuable lessons, forcing rapid adaptation and sharper reflexes. Yet, despite his considerable talent, Orion was repeatedly overwhelmed, clearly unfamiliar with managing simultaneous, coordinated attacks from multiple opponents. His breathing grew heavier, fatigue accumulating as minutes turned into hours of relentless practice. Still, Orion stubbornly refused to back down. Instead, his determination only deepened, each defeat sharpening his analytical mind. Gradually, he learned to anticipate and exploit brief openings within their coordinated movements, improving steadily with each passing exchange. Focus, young master. Predict our intentions before we move. Edgar encouraged sharply, expertly adjusting the pace to keep Orion continually challenged. Lucan's eyes sparkled with surprising intensity, his playful demeanor now replaced by genuine seriousness. You're doing well, young master, but you must broaden your perception, fight both of us as one. Slowly, Orion's movements began shifting, growing smoother and more precise. His instincts adapted to their synchronized rhythm, enabling him to predict and counter their moves with increasing efficiency. His sword gradually transitioned from purely defensive to increasingly assertive, skillfully weaving counterattacks amidst his parries. Each successful counter built Orion's confidence, refining his instincts further. His focus sharpened dramatically, awareness expanding to encompass both Edgar and Lucan simultaneously, his blade movements becoming more decisive and controlled. After several exhausting yet profoundly instructive hours, Edgar finally signaled the conclusion of their rigorous training session. Orion, drenched in sweat yet clearly satisfied with his progress, lowered his sword, breathing heavily from exertion. Well done, young master, Edgar praised warmly, genuine pride clear in his voice. You improved greatly today. Group battles require vastly different awareness and adaptability, remember these lessons. Lucan, returning his blade to its sheath, grinned appreciatively. Indeed. You surprised me, young master. Not bad at all. Orion nodded appreciatively, wiping sweat from his brow. Thank you both. I still have much to learn, but today was extremely enlightening. Edgar smiled warmly, placing a reassuring hand on Orion's shoulder. We'll continue refining this skill. For now, rest well. You've earned it. Orion looked at him for a second and asked, what about sword aura? Is there a different approach to learn it, where one just learns it from experience? Edgar paused, then thoughtfully said, I forgot to tell you, young master, but sword auras are also based on our elements. For example, if someone has fire affinity, then they will awaken the fire sword aura. You need to not only learn the sword art but also have deep understanding of your elements. He paused, letting the knowledge sink in before continuing, but looking at you, you already have deep knowledge of elements and are only lacking in the experience with the sword. These battles will help you with that. Orion exhaled a sigh and nodded his head, very well, then I will continue to practice the sword like this. Edgar nodded his head lightly, feeling a surge of pride in his heart at the rapid progress of Orion. Feeling deeply satisfied with the progress he'd made under Edgar and Lucan's guidance, Orion thanked them once more and made his way back to the mansion. As he stepped inside, he instantly noticed Rune and Fiora patiently waiting outside his room, their expressions lighting up with smiles as soon as they saw him approach. The three of them chatted for a bit before Orion headed inside the bathroom for a quick bath with the two of them. After having a calming bath, he came out feeling refreshed. After drying off and dressing comfortably, Orion turned to Rune and Fiora, gently dismissing them with warmth. You both have worked hard today as well. Please, rest now and take some time for yourselves. Rune nodded cheerfully, her eyes brightening with gratitude. Thank you, master. If you need anything else, please let us know. Fiora echoed quietly, offering a gentle smile. I'll rest well, master. As they left, Orion closed his room's door gently behind them, allowing himself a moment of quiet peace. His expression grew serious, his thoughts already shifting to the next crucial step in his swordsmanship journey. Moving to the center of his spacious room, Orion carefully settled into a cross-legged position on the soft, woven rug, breathing deeply to center himself. With calm movements, he retrieved the sword aura resonance stone from his inventory. The small, translucent stone gleamed gently in his palm, emitting a subtle, inviting pulse of energy. "Master, are you finally going to use it?" Lumi asked curiously, her screen appearing beside him, gently hovering near his shoulder. Orion nodded thoughtfully, carefully turning the stone between his fingers. "Yes. Uncle Edgar mentioned that sword aura aligns with one's elemental affinities. Given my recent progress, this seems like the perfect time to gain deeper insight." Lumi bobbed enthusiastically, clearly excited yet slightly cautious. "This stone will definitely provide valuable knowledge, but be careful, Master. It could overwhelm you if you're not prepared." "Well, I don't think it's dangerous. At least I can't feel any danger from it," Orion replied calmly, eyes fixed intently on the stone. He took a deep, measured breath, calming his mind fully and ensuring his mana channels were stable. Once completely prepared, Orion gently infused a thin strand of mana into the sword aura resonance stone. Immediately, it vibrated intensely, its surface shimmering brightly before abruptly vanishing from his palm. Startled slightly, Orion swiftly closed his eyes and entered his sea of consciousness. Within that vast expanse, the stone suddenly materialized above, radiating brilliantly before exploding outward in a cascade of vivid, multicolored insights. Streams of profound understanding about various sword auras surged through Orion's consciousness, merging rapidly into his expansive mental space. Chapter 215, New Spells. Orion felt his mind stretch under the sheer intensity of the information flood. Images of countless sword techniques flickered vividly, each deeply linked with different elemental affinities. Swords blazing with searing flames, crackling violently with thunder, flowing gracefully with verdant life, riding the waves like flowing water, hard as the expanse of earth, all were intricately displayed, each imparting profound elemental comprehension. Summoning every ounce of his extraordinary comprehension and mental resilience, Orion swiftly organized the turbulent insights, systematically absorbing them with focus. Sweat beaded upon his brow as he fiercely processed the relentless influx of profound elemental sword knowledge. Gradually, as the torrent of insights subsided, Orion clearly sensed distinct resonances among the sword auras he could grasp. With his affinity runes for thunder, fire, and wood firmly established, comprehension of these specific sword auras flowed smoothly into his mind, becoming significantly clearer and more accessible. The fierce intensity of Thunder Sword aura, swift, precise, overwhelmingly powerful, settled deeply within his mental grasp. Likewise, the ferocious, blazing nature of the Fire Sword aura resonated powerfully, carrying unyielding aggression and devastating offensive capability. Lastly, the graceful yet tenaciously versatile Wood Sword aura flowed harmoniously within him, embodying resilience, adaptability, and constant regeneration. However, the other elemental sword auras, water, metal, earth, ice, and so forth, remained just outside his reach, their comprehension elusive without fully formed affinity runes anchoring them within his consciousness. Slowly opening his eyes back in the physical world, Orion breathed heavily, slightly exhausted but deeply gratified by the tremendous knowledge gained. The Sword Aura Resonance Stone's powerful effects had significantly expanded his understanding of elemental swordsmanship, albeit only for the elements he had properly mastered. "Master, how do you feel?" Lumi immediately asked with clear concern, gently floating closer to observe him carefully. Orion exhaled deeply, a small, satisfied smile tugging at his lips. "I'm all right, Lumi. It was intense, but the insights gained were invaluable. Although incomplete, the foundation for my thunder, fire, and wood sword auras has significantly strengthened." "That's wonderful news, Master." Lumi cheered joyfully, clearly relieved and delighted. "With this foundation, your sword skills will surely improve rapidly." Orion nodded with slight excitement, feeling confident in his newfound understanding. He rose slowly from his seated position, stretching leisurely to relieve the lingering tension from his focused meditation. Lumi said warmly, "You've made incredible progress today." He chuckled and nodded, feeling rather satisfied with today's and the last few days' progress as he could feel himself getting stronger every day. "These days have been rather fruitful. Tomorrow I should be able to learn some spells from Grandpa." Then I can use a few days to get used to all the new things I have gained, he mused to himself while calculating all the things he had gained. You really gained a lot: spells, skills, treasures, new element, and experience as well. Orion smiled softly, feeling warmth and satisfaction settle deeply within his chest at Lumi's cheerful words. He stretched leisurely, a faint yawn escaping his lips. Indeed, Lumi, these past few days have been incredibly productive. I feel stronger already. Hee, you certainly are getting stronger, Master. Soon enough, no one in the academy will dare challenge you. Orion chuckled gently at Lumi's enthusiastic declaration. I wonder why no one has challenged me since that, what was his name? Aaron Wernthron, Master. Ah yes, him. Did they decide to leave me alone? Or are the people behind him planning something else? I don't think they would leave you alone so easily, Master. We should stay cautious of them. He thoughtfully nodded his head, yes. But right now, there's still a lot more to learn, especially with the sword auras. I need more practical combat experience and familiarity with the elements to truly master them. cthnovelfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Don't worry, Master. With Uncle Edgar's training and your comprehension, it's only a matter of time. You'll definitely master them quickly. He nodded confidently, turning his gaze toward the window once more. Outside, the mansion's gardens lay peacefully beneath the starlit sky, the gentle rustle of leaves adding a soothing soundtrack to the tranquil night. After a few quiet moments of contemplation, Orion stepped toward his study table, neatly laid out with parchment and scrolls detailing the primary runes. His expression turned serious once again, eyes sharp and focused. All right, Lumi. Time to grind for a few more hours again. We work today so we can slack in the future. Lumi eagerly bobbed in agreement, her screen sparkling cheerfully. Understood, Master. Let's go through them again carefully. Settling comfortably into his chair, Orion opened the rune book, diligently reviewing the foundational primary runes before drawing them on the parchments. Despite his fatigue from the long day, Orion's determination remained unwavering. Yet, as the hours ticked gently by and the moon rose higher, his eyelids began feeling heavier, a gentle yawn slipping out despite his best efforts. Realizing further study would only be less efficient, Orion finally decided to call it a night. Gently closing the book and tidying the desk, he stood and walked wearily toward his bed, letting out a tired but satisfied sigh. Truly, one can sleep like they are in heaven if they are studying, he murmured quietly, sinking into the soft mattress. Good night, Lil Lumi. Good night, Master. Rest well, greater than over equal to less than over equal to. The next morning, Orion awoke late as usual, sunlight already warmly illuminating the room. Lumi's cheerful voice immediately greeted him as he rubbed the sleep from his eyes. Master, you overslept again. Your evolution really might be close now. Orion chuckled sleepily, rising slowly from the bed. All right, no need to keep reminding me about this. It will come whenever it comes. I need to think about how to explain this to Grandpa and Grandma soon. Lumi can't help with that. He chuckled and shook his head, I will think of something. After freshening up swiftly in the washroom, Orion soon opened the door to find Rune and Fiora waiting outside, their familiar gentle smiles brightening his morning. Good morning, Master. Rune greeted cheerfully, her energy infectious as always. Fiora softly echoed the greeting, eyes shining warmly. Gee, good morning, Master. Orion smiled fondly, enjoying their presence in the morning. Good morning, you too. Shall we? With their assistance, he bathed swiftly, the warm water refreshing his mind and muscles, leaving him invigorated and fully awake. Freshly dressed, Orion headed straight toward the dining hall, where Eldrick and Celine already sat, chatting warmly over breakfast. Eldrick looked up and smiled broadly as Orion entered, motioning warmly for him to sit. Ah, Orion. Slept well, lad? Yes, Grandpa, Orion answered warmly, seating himself comfortably. As he started eating, anticipation flickered clearly within his gaze. Will I be learning thunder spells today? Eldrick laughed heartily at Orion's enthusiasm, eyes twinkling with delight. Eager, aren't you? Yes, after breakfast, come with me. I prepared some foundational spells for you. Orion quickly finished his meal, barely suppressing his excitement. After exchanging goodbyes with Celine, Orion followed Eldrick briskly to his study. After entering the study, Eldrick carefully arranged the scrolls on his polished desk, their edges lined neatly, emitting a subtle aura of mana. Orion immediately leaned in, eyes glittering with keen anticipation as Eldrick gently tapped each scroll. Alright, lad. Let's start with the basics. Here are 5 Tier 1 Thunder spells: Thunderbolt, Static Pulse, Flash Step, Electric Shield, and Spark Barrage, Eldrick explained, gesturing with an instructor's precise clarity. Orion swiftly glanced over the Tier 1 scrolls, nodding briefly at them but clearly far more intrigued by the higher-tier spells laid further along the desk. Eldrick noticed Orion's gaze and chuckled softly, nodding in understanding. I figured you'd be eager for these, Eldrick remarked, sliding the next set of scrolls forward. These Tier 2 spells are quite good: Chain Lightning, Storm Cage, and Velocity Strike. They provide versatile utility for any combat scenario. Chapter 216, finished learning. Orion's fingers traced the scrolls, carefully absorbing their contents as Eldrick continued. Chain Lightning excels in crowd control. Storm Cage isolates and disables foes, and Velocity Strike is perfect for a swift assault or retreat. Orion examined the rune formulas thoughtfully, immediately raising a question. Grandpa, the Storm Cage spell, can the dome be strengthened or expanded by adding more runes or altering its current formula? Eldrick smiled approvingly, appreciating Orion's proactive thinking. Yes, lad. But you need good mastery of mana circuits as well as runic inscription for that. And the spell will become a Tier 3 spell then as well. But it will also increase the mana consumption drastically. Orion nodded, noting the advice mentally before moving eagerly to the final scrolls, clearly the most intriguing. Eldrick's eyes sparkled knowingly, unveiling 2 impressive Tier 3 scrolls. These are Tempest Maelstrom and Skybreaker Lance, Eldrick introduced calmly, emphasizing their names as if they were above Tier 9 spells. These spells are the highest tier a person can master before the mortal evolution stage. Tempest Maelstrom provides continuous area suppression, and Skybreaker Lance, well, that's your devastating single-target finisher. Orion's eyes flashed with subtle excitement as he studied the complex rune sequences. He carefully examined the Skybreaker Lance scroll, brow furrowed thoughtfully. Grandpa, this detonate rune, does it activate internally upon impact, or is it possible to trigger it manually after penetration? Eldrick nodded appreciatively at Orion's perceptive question. Good observation. Naturally, it detonates internally upon fully penetrating a barrier. But you can slightly modify the rune formation to trigger it manually, once again if you are experienced with mana circuits and runic inscriptions. Orion smiled lightly, clearly excited by these possibilities. Then it'll be even more versatile. Excellent. Eldrick patted Orion's shoulder gently. Take your time to understand thoroughly, lad. Remember, strong fundamentals build strong spells. Yes, Grandpa, Orion answered confidently, settling himself at the desk. Eldrick observed briefly, pride evident in his gaze, before leaving Orion to his focused study. The following hours saw Orion completely immersed, meticulously tracing each rune onto high-grade parchment provided by Celine, mana-filled ink flowing effortlessly from his quill. Sir the Novel, F.ir.nt website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. After what felt like both an eternity and an instant, Orion placed the final stroke, exhaling deeply in satisfaction as the completed formation shimmered vibrantly on the parchment. Good lad, it's only late afternoon but you've finished learning all of the thunder spells. Eldrick stroked his beard, pride evident on his face. He had long forgotten to get shocked at his grandson's feats, as that would be rather idiotic after everything he had already done. Orion lightly smiled and exhaled a long breath. You helped me with the questions as well, Grandpa. I might have taken a few more hours without you. Ha ha ha, look at you boasting now. Eldrick laughed out loud hearing his words. Will you rest now or inscribe them in your sea of consciousness? He smiled lightly and stood up. Of course, I'll inscribe them right now. I have more things to do after this. Eldrick smiled and stood to the side, fully expecting his workaholic grandson to finish all the spells in one session. Orion moved to the center of the room, settling cross-legged onto the meditation mat. Closing his eyes, he calmly entered the boundless blue expanse of his sea of consciousness, ready to engrave each spell deeply into his internal world. He first inscribed the Tier 1 spells one after another around the Affinity rune before slowly inscribing the higher tiers. After a long time, he finished inscribing the last Tier 3 spell and mentally exhaled a long sigh. Phew, finally done. Master, you've successfully engraved all the spells. Lumi is so proud of you. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to. He chuckled before exiting the SOC and slowly opening his eyes. He exhaled gently, satisfaction deeply etched into his calm expression. Eldrick stepped forward, his gaze warm and appreciative. Well done, lad. Inscribing spells, especially those third-tier level ones at your level, is never easy. Your progress these past few days has truly been astonishing. Orion smiled warmly, rising gracefully from the meditation mat. A faint wave of exhaustion lingered, but it was shoved to the side by an overwhelming sense of achievement. Thank you, Grandpa. I'll head back and rest for a bit for now. I still have sword training with Uncle Edgar and Brother Lucan later. Eldrick nodded approvingly, gently clapping Orion's shoulder. Good. Rest well. You'll probably need all the strength you can muster, especially considering how he has increased the intensity of the training. Orion chuckled softly, fully aware of how demanding Edgar's sessions had grown. With a respectful nod toward his grandfather, he quietly exited the study, making his way toward his own chamber. Upon reaching his room, Orion closed the door gently, letting out a long, contented sigh. He allowed himself to fully relax, lying back on his plush bed and briefly closing his eyes. Warm sunlight bathed the room, its comforting glow easing the lingering mental fatigue from engraving the intricate spells. Lumi hopes Master feels all right. Today's progress was especially taxing, wasn't it? Orion smiled faintly, eyes still gently closed. It was mentally tiring because I did too many things in too little time. But the rewards are well worth it. I can't wait to zap some idiots. But I still need combat experience with my thunder spells, can't use them without learning how to properly utilize them. Lumi giggled lightly, enthusiastically saying, Those at the academy would have gotten the shock of their life if you could have revealed your thunder affinity as well. He chuckled softly in agreement before gradually rising, aware that rest couldn't last too long. Stretching leisurely to shake off lingering stiffness, Orion soon departed his room, heading directly toward the mansion's training grounds. Arriving there, Edgar and Lucan awaited him, leisurely sunbathing beside the training ring. As soon as they saw him, they stood up and greeted him. Orion didn't waste much time and entered the ring with them. The two of them stood opposite him and unsheathed their swords while looking at him with varying expressions. Edgar's smile was firm but kind, while Lucan's mischievous expression hinted at his playful anticipation of their coming spar. Ready, young master? Edgar asked, adjusting his sword grip calmly. Orion nodded decisively, unsheathing his obsidian longsword. Always, Uncle Edgar. Without further delay, their rigorous session commenced. Lucan and Edgar attacked simultaneously, perfectly synchronized, pushing Orion relentlessly. The next several hours flew by in intense combat, Orion steadily sharpening his reflexes, awareness, and practical sword mastery, gradually incorporating glimpses of his newly acquired sword aura insights into combat. By evening, Orion was thoroughly exhausted yet satisfied with his clear improvements. Sweat-soaked and slightly breathless, he returned to his room, immediately welcomed by the comforting presence of Rune and Fiora. They swiftly and carefully helped him bathe, their gentle chatter and soft laughter easing his fatigue further. After dressing comfortably, Orion descended to the dining hall, joining Eldrick and Celine for a warm, family dinner. Pleasant conversation filled the room, their affectionate interactions reinforcing the comforting sense of stability that always soothed Orion deeply. Once dinner concluded, Orion habitually visited Seraph's quiet chamber. As always, he softly spoke to her, recounting details of his busy day. Seraph listened silently, her emerald eyes gradually warming, her occasional nods increasingly confident and reassuring, yet her smile remained lost, something Orion deeply wished to someday see. Returning finally to his own room, Orion sat determinedly at his desk, resuming his nightly routine of thoroughly memorizing and practicing the foundational primary runes. With Lumi's gentle encouragement, he studied diligently until deep into the night, finally surrendering to sleep when fatigue overtook his concentration. Chapter 217, Daily Routine. The following days settled into a consistent yet fulfilling routine. Each morning, Orion awoke late, freshened himself, and enjoyed a relaxing bath aided by Rune and Fiora's gentle assistance. Breakfast followed shortly after, during which Eldrick warmly instructed him on various aspects of spell combat theory and application. "Today, Orion," Eldrick announced the next morning, his voice cheerful and confident, "we'll start integrating your new thunder spells directly into combat scenarios. It's essential to not only know the spells but also understand precisely when and how to employ them effectively." Orion eagerly agreed, his eyes glittering with excitement. "Understood, Grandpa. Let's begin immediately." The mornings from then on were spent intensely at the spacious training grounds behind the mansion. Eldrick patiently and meticulously guided Orion through rigorous practical exercises, simulating diverse combat situations requiring careful spell selection and precise execution. Initially, Orion struggled slightly, unfamiliar with rapidly deciding spell usage amidst chaotic combat. Yet his extraordinary comprehension and adaptability swiftly bridged this gap, his proficiency dramatically improving each passing day. By each afternoon's end, Orion would briefly rest, recuperating briefly before plunging into Edgar and Lucan's demanding swordsmanship training sessions. The duo continued relentlessly testing and refining Orion's ability to handle multiple opponents, enhancing both his tactical flexibility and martial instincts. After each training session, Orion bathed comfortably, joined Eldrick and Celine for dinner, spent quiet moments chatting gently with Seraph, and then diligently studied runes each night until exhaustion guided him to bed. After quite a few days of this routine, Orion had clearly gotten a lot more experienced with the use of his spells as well as swordsmanship. Both Eldrick and Edgar openly praised his rapid improvement, their pride evident and genuine. "Truly astonishing progress, lad," Eldrick remarked warmly after an evening session at the training ground. "You've adapted to practical combat magic faster than anyone I've ever seen." Edgar, who was watching them practice, moved forward while chuckling as he said in agreement, "Young master has also improved by leaps and bounds in swordsmanship. Now he's just missing a spark of inspiration before he can master the sword aura." Orion smiled warmly at their praise, feeling quite good after training for so long. Eldrick, however, seriously said, "But you also need to rest, lad. You have been training for like a week straight with little to no rest. It's about time you take a break from training and go back to the academy." Edgar also nodded, "Yes, you can take this time to let your body rest as well, lest it break down." Orion exhaled a sigh and agreed, "All right, Grandpa. I'll do as you say then. It's about time I go and check up on the group's progress." "Ha ha ha, it's only been like a week. What progress can there be in such a little time?" Eldrick laughed and shook his head before heading back to the mansion. Edgar chuckled and left as well, leaving Orion alone standing at the training ground. "Hee, they are right, master. It's already impressive if one of them has made further progress, much less the group." He shook his head, "You guys are forgetting to take into account that this is the golden era. There are plenty of talents out there who are improving ridiculously fast. I have good hope for the group members." Maybe. But you really learned all 108 primary runes of the Thunder Peak Academy, master. This has gotta be a record of some type." Orion smiled softly at Lumi's enthusiastic remark as he left the training grounds, slowly walking through the mansion's beautifully maintained garden. "Yes, Lumi," Orion agreed quietly as he walked, enjoying the peace of the moment. Learning all 108 primary runes from that book in under a month might indeed be a record. But more importantly, this knowledge will greatly benefit my future growth. Absolutely, Master. With such extensive rune knowledge, your future spell crafting and affinity rune crafting will definitely improve even more. Lumi can't wait to see your classmates' reactions. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to. He chuckled softly, continuing along the garden path until he reached a secluded corner near the eastern edge of the mansion. Here, he had carefully planted the heartspring sapling seed several days ago, and Orion now approached with curiosity sparkling in his gaze. The area around the sapling was notably peaceful, a subtle sense of vitality permeating the air. As Orion knelt gently beside the small patch of earth, his eyes lit up warmly. There, a delicate, vibrant green sprout now peeked shyly from the rich soil, its tiny leaves unfurling slowly toward the evening sun. "Look, Lumi," Orion murmured softly, lightly brushing his fingertips across the tender young leaves. "The heartspring sapling has finally sprouted. It's quite beautiful, isn't it? So cute. Master, you should nourish it with your wood mana. It'll definitely grow faster." Search *the website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Orion nodded gently, focusing quietly within himself as he carefully channeled his pure wood element mana toward the fragile sprout. The sapling immediately responded, its leaves visibly brightening as it eagerly absorbed his nourishing energy. With a gentle, satisfied smile, Orion retrieved a nearby watering can and lightly sprinkled clear, refreshing water onto the sprout. As the droplets of water seeped gently into the earth, Orion sat comfortably beside the young sapling, contemplating quietly. "I truly can't wait to see what effect this sapling will produce once it matures into a full-grown tree. It's supposed to generate a natural mana well, enriching the environment significantly." "Indeed, Master. The heartspring tree's mana well could greatly benefit your future training, especially for extended meditation sessions and rune engraving." Orion nodded thoughtfully, softly stroking the damp earth around the sapling with care. "Exactly. With a permanent mana source here at the mansion, both my own training and everyone else's growth will become much smoother. But it will take time for it to fully mature, and patience is needed." "Patience, Master has plenty of. With careful nurturing, it'll definitely grow big and strong soon. And it's a special sapling, within half a year it should be able to grow to a good height." He smiled warmly, gently rising to his feet again after ensuring the sapling had been thoroughly watered and nourished. After a lingering glance at the little plant, Orion slowly walked back inside the mansion, feeling a deep sense of contentment. Returning to his room, Orion settled comfortably at his desk. Feeling hungry after the day's rigorous training, he casually retrieved a few meatballs from his inventory, savoring their delicious taste and rich nourishment as energy quickly flowed back into his body. Satisfied, Orion then took out the Akashic record token from his inventory, the token's enigmatic surface shimmering faintly under the gentle lamplight. He studied it closely, feeling curiosity stirring deeply within him once again. Yet, just as he considered using it, Lumi's gentle voice chimed softly in his mind. "Master, perhaps we should wait and see exactly what knowledge we lack before accessing the Akashic records. After all, we've already made huge progress recently, and entering the library prematurely could mean missing out on truly crucial things." Orion thoughtfully considered her words, eventually agreeing with a quiet nod. "You're right, Lumi. I should first look around here and see what I cannot find." "Exactly, Master. Then we'll use it at just the right time, when you need it most. That way, its potential can be fully realized." He smiled appreciatively at her wise advice, carefully placing the token back into his inventory. Orion then stretched leisurely, feeling the accumulated fatigue of days of intense training finally catching up with him. Moving quietly toward his bed, he lay down comfortably upon the soft mattress, allowing exhaustion to gently claim him. "Good night, Lumi. Tomorrow will be an exciting day, I'm sure. Academy will be chaotic, hee. Good night, Master. Rest well." Chapter 218, Meeting Instructor Viren again the following morning, Orion found himself comfortably seated inside the luxurious obsidian carriage, gently rolling on the smoothly paved road toward Thunder Peak Royal Academy. Bright morning sunlight streamed gently through the carriage's silk-curtained windows, casting a soft, warm glow over the plush, cushioned interior. Orion reclined leisurely against the velvet-lined seat, a relaxed and calm expression on his face as he quietly chatted with Lumi, planning out his day ahead. "Master, have you decided what you want to do first when we get to the academy today?" Orion thoughtfully nodded, his gaze turning contemplative as he looked out the window at the passing scenery, the bustling city streets slowly transitioning to the quieter avenues leading toward the academy grounds. "As usual, I will first go to check on Arya and Amelia," he mused quietly, fingers gently tapping against his thigh as he spoke. "It's been about a week since we last met. Let's see how they progressed in this time." "Great idea." Arya and Amelia would definitely have been training hard too, especially due to the pressure that is upon them as heirs of noble and royal houses. "And Arya would probably be eager to chat with you again." Greater than over equal to nabla less than over equal to. Orion chuckled softly, nodding in agreement. Indeed, it's a shame how much pressure is upon those girls. But that will also help to push them forward. I'll talk to them first and catch up properly before doing anything else. He paused briefly, his mind clearly visualizing the day's schedule. Afterwards, we'll head straight for the Tower of Myths again. It's been a while since I last challenged it. Testing my improvements in combat there should be interesting. Lumi can't wait to see that. You'll definitely go much higher now with your newly mastered spells and improved swordsmanship. You will surprise everyone again. Orion chuckled hearing her relentless praise. Well, we'll see. I hope to gain some more insight into my sword skills as well. The tower is the perfect environment for this kind of practical experience, especially against skilled echoes of past students. The carriage slowly came to a halt outside the academy's entrance. Edgar opened the carriage gate as he gracefully stepped down, the chatter from the surroundings intensifying. Turning briefly back toward the carriage, Orion smiled warmly at Edgar and Lucan. "Thank you both. I'll be back later." Edgar smiled warmly. "It's been a while since you came to the academy, young master." Lucan yawned dramatically, chuckling softly. "Don't shock the whole academy on your first day after returning, some teachers might die from shock." Orion shook his head slightly, smiling in amusement before turning and striding confidently toward the academy's gates. After gaining entry and walking inside, he saw the scene hadn't changed at all. Students still chatted animatedly while walking around in groups. Walking deeper into the academy, Orion took his time, leisurely observing the lively environment around him. With a gentle smile, Orion swiftly navigated the familiar pathways, effortlessly blending into the morning rush of students. His presence drew subtle yet curious glances, whispers and gazes quietly followed him as he moved. After his last tower climbing feat, people couldn't stop discussing him wherever he went. Ignoring the attention, Orion soon arrived at the usual gathering spot of their group, the serene garden. At the center stood the beautiful and large cherry blossom tree, dropping leaves in the surroundings. However, this morning the garden appeared surprisingly empty, the peaceful scene noticeably lacking the familiar presence of Arya and Amelia. Pausing beneath the cherry blossom tree, Orion glanced around thoughtfully, eyebrows gently furrowing. It's strange," he murmured softly to himself, his gaze carefully scanning the area. "Arya and Amelia usually spend mornings here. Perhaps they left early for their classes?" Lumi chimed softly, her voice bright and reassuring within his mind. "That's quite possible, master. They might have been busy preparing to secretly surpass you. We can catch them later though." Orion chuckled softly in amusement. "Well, you might be right. Let's check on them later then. For now, heading straight to the Tower of Myths seems best." "Sounds like a great plan, master. I'm excited to see your improvements after all the recent intense training." Greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Nodding his head with a smile, Orion turned away from the garden, heading straight towards the tower. The tower soon came into view as he took a few turns from the main building and training grounds. Students gathered near its entrance, excitedly discussing their previous attempts or preparing themselves mentally for the challenges inside. Outside the tower's grand entrance, a familiar reclining chair had been placed leisurely beneath a large shade-providing tree. Resting comfortably upon it was Instructor Viren, his casual demeanor unchanged from Orion's previous encounter. Viren relaxed languidly, his gaze drifting lazily across the approaching students with a faint smile, clearly enjoying the peaceful morning ambience. Upon noticing Orion approaching, Instructor Viren slowly sat up straight, eyebrows rising mildly in surprise seeing him in such a good condition. "Well, if it isn't the little monster of our academy, Orion," Viren said with a chuckle while nodding lightly in greeting. "Looks like you've been healing properly." Orion smiled politely, inclining his head in respect. "Thanks for the last time, Instructor Viren. I heard my grandpa was quite harsh on you. I apologize for him." Viren waved his hand dismissively. "Haha, what are you saying, young Hellstorm? He wasn't harsh or anything. I can understand his reaction. And I went to your estate knowing what could have happened. So you don't need to apologize. Anyways, what are you here for? Challenge the tower again?" Orion smiled in relief. "Yes, Instructor. I've made some progress and I wish to see how far I can go." Instructor Viren calmly nodded his head. "It's a good thing you have such an attitude for training, young man. However, I must warn you, now that you've reached the 3rd tier in both paths, the difficulty will greatly rise as the tower will match the echoes to your level." Orion raised an eyebrow. "Will they be 3rd tier in both mana and body paths as well?" Viren smirked. "Of course. Otherwise, how could it be the Tower of Trials? Wouldn't people like you just clear the whole damn thing?" Orion's lips twitched. "But I achieved this with my hard work. It's not like I'm getting an unfair advantage due to my family or something." Viren chuckled and shook his head. "This tower is supposed to be the training ground before the ranking tower. You shouldn't look at it with the mindset of ranking higher, but instead treat it as your best training partner. After all, how many such towers do you think exist throughout the kingdom?" "Only this one," Orion exhaled and admitted. "Yes," Viren nodded his head proudly, but his voice turned disappointed as he continued. "People in the outside world would fight for a chance to enter this tower so they can improve themselves, while the brats here only treat it as a ranking board." He heaved a sigh and agreed. "I know, but I was never after the rankings. Otherwise, I wouldn't have stopped at the 50th floor. But this just got a lot more interesting. Will the mages have physical combat experience and the warriors have spells?" Viren shook his head. "Haha, no. They will only have enhanced physical defense and reaction time, while the warriors will have more mana reserves for executing their techniques." Search *the website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Mana techniques. I need to learn more about this. His eyes lit up as he learned about the new thing. They chatted for a bit longer before Orion prepared himself to enter the tower. "Then I will head inside the tower." He bowed a little to show respect before heading toward the tower. Viren looked at his fading back with an interested gaze before he started looking around. "Alright, now let's see who's up for some small gambling." Chapter 219, Entering the Tower again. Orion stepped inside the Tower of Myths, the heavy double doors silently closing behind him. Immediately, the familiar dim lighting enveloped him, illuminating a spacious area ringed by smooth, polished stone walls. In the center of the arena, a semi-transparent figure slowly manifested, a young warrior clad in light silver armor, holding a slender longsword confidently. Orion narrowed his eyes slightly, observing carefully. Unlike the echo he'd faced the last time, this one exuded a distinctly more powerful aura, clearly emanating 3rd tier mana and body path energy. "Tier 3, both paths, huh?" Orion murmured, tightening his grip on his obsidian sword. "This will indeed be interesting." The echo moved abruptly, launching forward with astonishing speed. Orion met the initial strike, their swords colliding with a sharp metallic clang that echoed throughout the chamber. The echo's strength and agility were impressive, making Orion consider studying it first. Parrying and dodging fluidly, Orion took his time to carefully observe the echo's attack patterns. Each strike of the echo was precise and powerful, backed by superior physical strength and speed due to its third-tier physical refinement. Unlike previous encounters, this opponent's moves were not easily predicted. He was using more refined sword techniques. Orion quickly realized the genuine leap in difficulty. Previously, the opponents had been far too restricted in relation to his own level. Their movements and attacks had been straightforward and predictable, at least on the starting floors. After exchanging several swift blows, Orion finally decided to end it, deftly maneuvering to deliver a decisive strike. His blade swept upward, slicing cleanly through the echo's chest and ending the battle in a sudden burst of dissipating light. He exhaled slowly, appreciating the brief but intense bout. Interesting indeed, he muttered softly, before being teleported straight to the next floor. The second floor introduced an echo dual-wielding curved swords, its rapid flurry of attacks forcing Orion to emphasize footwork and precise counters. Yet he didn't use any skill or spell and relied only on the basic footwork that Edgar had taught him. Did the echoes change? I remember quite clearly that the second floor one had a longsword before. They might have been shuffled for the lower floors, Master. Probably to throw off those who came prepared for specific fights. He shook his head and ascended to the next floor. The third brought a heavily armored swordsman wielding a greatsword. Orion steadily used him to test his swordsmanship while making small improvements. He swiftly advanced through the subsequent floors, restricting himself exclusively to swordsmanship to fully appreciate and understand the nuances of each encounter. Floor after floor, Orion steadily improved, refining his instinctive swordsmanship further with each victory. By the time he cleared the fifth floor, sweat lightly beaded his brow, but his eyes were alight with excitement. This is exactly what Instructor Viren meant by a training partner. These echoes, they're far better than the previous ones. I'm having more difficulty than when I came before. Well, that's a given, Master. The last time you came, you'd only reached the first tier in the mana path. You had a robust body but no progress in the body path. So the tower made all of the echoes much weaker compared to your body. But now, it will be fun. He got teleported to the sixth floor soon after, and as he materialized there, his eyes widened slightly in surprise as he saw a semi-transparent echo taking the shape of a young mage dressed in elegant, flowing robes bearing faint runic inscriptions. Search the novelfire.net website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. Finally, a mage, huh? Seeing the mage echo materialize before him, Orion paused briefly, a faint smile curling on his lips. Unlike the warriors he'd previously faced, he decided to use a completely different approach against him. Deciding swiftly, Orion calmly sheathed his obsidian sword, the soft metallic click echoing gently across the silent stone chamber. All right, Orion murmured softly, eyes narrowing with interest. Time to see just how much my spells have improved. The mage echo wasted no time, rapidly beginning to chant a spell. Orion recognized it. It was the chant for a Tier 3 wind spell. Within moments, fierce gusts surged forward, slicing sharply through the air toward him. Reacting swiftly, Orion instinctively conjured a spell he'd become familiar with. Verdant shield, he whispered calmly, mana flowing smoothly into the ground. But just as the vines and leaves emerged, Orion sharply halted his cast, clicking his tongue softly in mild annoyance. No. I should try to use fire spells only, he said to himself. Without hesitation, he sidestepped the incoming wind blades, pivoting neatly as they crashed harmlessly against the stone wall behind him. Regaining his footing, Orion quickly retaliated, hands moving fluidly as his mana ignited fiercely. Flame dart, he commanded clearly, forming several slender, flaming projectiles that shot forward with blazing speed. The mage echo deftly conjured a shimmering barrier of wind, absorbing the darts with a sizzling hiss. Immediately following up, the echo swiftly summoned large wind blades, launching them forward in rapid succession. Anticipating this, Orion rapidly cast the Tier 2 spell, blast fire orb, sending a large fiery sphere hurtling toward the windy onslaught. The orb exploded dramatically, blowing away the wind projectiles mid-air, sparks billowing and briefly obscuring vision. Through the dissipating sparks, Orion glimpsed the mage beginning another spell, its intricate runes illuminating ominously. Recognizing the threat, Orion swiftly chose a decisive counterattack. Drake Fire Breath, he calmly whispered, deeply inhaling as fire mana concentrated powerfully within him. With a swift exhale, a roaring cone of intense flames erupted forth, surging directly at the mage echo. Forced onto the defensive, the echo hastily summoned layers of magical barriers, visibly strained as Orion's spell overwhelmed them. Flames surged violently around the barrier edges, burning steadily until the mage was completely engulfed. Finally, with a burst of dissipating mana, the echo vanished, defeated by Orion's powerful spell. Breathing steadily, Orion smiled faintly, satisfied yet thoughtful. Using only fire spells was quite interesting. I should use single-element spells more during this tower to get used to them before I reach the higher floors. I'll need to use all of my strength there. Wah, Master! Did you use a bit of your fire dragon's breath? That spell was not normal. That's not how spells work. Orion chuckled and nodded. Yes, I didn't do anything special, just tried to use a bit of what I've understood about the fire dragon's breath together with the Drake Fire Breath. That was really impressive. He chuckled and shook his head as the tower teleported him to the next floor. Orion's vision blurred briefly as he materialized onto the 7th floor. The floor was filled with various types of trees and greenery. Across from Orion, an echo gradually took shape. This opponent wore long green robes embroidered with golden leaf motifs, her slender hands gracefully tracing intricate runes into the air. Clearly, this echo specialized exclusively in the wood element, evident from the vitality radiating from her presence. Wood element, HM? Perfect. It's time to see how my mastery compares. He took a deep breath and purposefully channeled mana through his recently formed wood affinity rune. Orion felt a deep connection to the ambient energies of nature around him, as if the very essence of life was ready to answer his call. Let's begin, Orion murmured calmly. The echo wasted no time, swiftly casting the Tier 3 spell, Forest's Embrace. Thick, powerful vines burst forth violently from the stone floor, shooting rapidly toward Orion from all sides, intending to entrap him. Same spells as me? Did the tower scan my SOC to see what spells there are? He inwardly wondered but wasted no further time. Chapter 220, Ascending the Tower Verdant Shield, Orion whispered in response, smoothly commanding his own mana. A barrier of tightly woven leaves and branches materialized instantly, deflecting and absorbing the echo's aggressive vines. It's a good thing that the Tier 3 spell I learned wasn't a very offensive or single-target spell, he muttered, but he knew defense alone wouldn't grant him victory. Carefully observing an opening, Orion rapidly countered, casting Entangling Roots. His mana surged forth, drawing thick roots from beneath the echo. Surprisingly, the echo responded with similar mastery, forming a swift barrier of verdant shield, expertly blocking Orion's roots. Well, let's try something different, Orion murmured, his eyes narrowing thoughtfully. As the echo launched another series of attacks, Orion skillfully cast Nature's Grasp, exerting control over the ambient plant matter within the chamber. The echo found itself suddenly besieged by vines and roots manipulated directly by Orion's mana. Orion watched intently, impressed by the echo's rapid reaction as she cast Emerald Blade, slicing cleanly through the attacking plants. Determinately pressing forward, Orion seized the initiative once again. Verdant Surge, he cast deliberately, invigorating his body with surging life energy. He felt strength and endurance swelling within him, providing greater agility as he charged toward the echo. The echo, now visibly strained, summoned another set of roots defensively. Orion dodged swiftly, his enhanced agility enabling him to close the gap rapidly. Xianxia the Nefire.at website on Google to access chapters of novels early and in the highest quality. At close range, he decisively unleashed another Emerald Blade, its hardened wooden edge slicing neatly through the echo's defenses. A faint smile appeared on Orion's lips. You are done. With a decisive swipe, the blade passed through the echo's figure, dispersing her into shimmering green particles. Orion exhaled calmly, appreciating the depth and versatility of his wood spells. These echoes are getting out of hand, huh? At least now I know that wood spells are also quite good for offense. Impressive, Master. Your timing and strategy were perfect. Thank you, Lumi, Orion chuckled softly, nodding appreciatively. His smile remained even as the familiar teleportation sensation enveloped him once more. As Orion materialized onto the 8th floor, a surge of scorching heat immediately swept across his senses. The floor's stone walls flickered with a vivid orange hue, shimmering from the radiance of flowing lava that snaked its way through grooves etched intricately along the chamber's perimeter. Wisps of smoke and faint embers rose gently upward, adding to the oppressive heat that permeated the atmosphere. Opposite Orion, the echo swiftly took form, an imposing young mage clad in fiery red robes marked with intricate golden runes. His eyes glowed fiercely, reflecting the intense flames burning within them. The mage exuded the unmistakable aura of a powerful fire element specialist, mana visibly surging around him in vibrant, molten streams. Orion felt a pulse of anticipation course through him, realizing he'd have to counter fire with lightning. His thunder mana hummed vibrantly within his sea of consciousness, ready to unleash swift retribution. Let's see how thunder matches against fire, Orion murmured calmly, raising his hands in readiness. Without delay, the fire mage Echo initiated his assault. Chanting rapidly, intricate fire runes spiraled around him in dazzling arcs of orange. Within 3 seconds, he unleashed Molten Inferno, a powerful Tier 3 spell Orion had read about. A roaring torrent of liquid fire surged violently forward, threatening to engulf the entire area. In stark contrast, Orion swiftly whispered, "Flash step," vanishing instantly in a spark of electricity, repositioning himself safely to the mage's flank. The fiery torrent harmlessly scorched the stone floor where Orion previously stood. Taking advantage of the echo's recovery moment, Orion instantly cast Chain Lightning, mana surging effortlessly from his fingertips. A vibrant bolt erupted, striking the echo squarely and branching out with violent electric arcs. The echo flinched briefly, hastily erecting a shield of molten flame that partially absorbed the crackling assault. However, the mage quickly retaliated, chanting another spell, Flame Serpent. From his palm, a giant serpent of flame coiled forth, roaring aggressively and swiftly charging toward Orion. Reacting decisively, Orion cast Storm Cage. Within a heartbeat, a sizzling dome of electricity materialized, encapsulating the fiery serpent. Lightning sparks continuously battered it, gradually dissipating its fiery form until it vanished entirely. Without giving Orion a moment's reprieve, the mage began chanting a formidable spell. Fire mana gathered intensely, condensing into a massive sphere radiating scorching heat. Recognizing the danger of the spell, Solar Burst, another powerful Tier 3 attack, Orion prepared his decisive response. Skybreaker Lance, Orion intoned calmly yet rapidly, focusing his mana through complex pathways in mere moments. Within less than a second, a brilliant bolt surged forward, precisely piercing through the forming sphere of fire mana. An intense explosion resulted, the contained flames erupting violently outward. Caught within the backlash, the fire mage Echo staggered back, his defensive spells shattering instantly under the overwhelming internal detonation caused by the Skybreaker Lance. With one final crackling pulse of electricity, the Echo vanished, leaving only dissipating sparks behind. Orion exhaled slowly, calming his breathing amidst the fading heat. His thunder spells had made short work of the fire mage. That was so impressive, Master. Grandpa Eldrick really taught you well regarding the use of thunder spells as well as timing. He chuckled and nodded. From the looks of it, I would need to put wood at the back for battles and use fire or thunder elements. Right, your thunder spells really suit you perfectly. It seems your talent for combat gets better each fight. Lumi excitedly chimed in. Orion chuckled softly, acknowledging her compliment. Well, Grandpa Eldrick was certainly thorough with his lessons. But from here on out, I'll need to focus more on efficiency. As the floors rise, the enemies will only get stronger, and I'll need every ounce of mana and stamina available. That's wise, Master. Conserving your strength for the tougher opponents ahead is important. So, are you planning to use your sword and spells together from now on? Lumi asked curiously. Yes, Orion affirmed confidently, unsheathing and gripping his obsidian longsword firmly again. Using them in combination will let me swiftly end fights while preserving mana. And I'll start using my dragon's instinct more actively now, further sharpening my reaction speed. I should be able to learn equal to what I learn without them as well. Ooh, that's exciting. With your instincts guiding your swordsmanship and magic, these echoes won't stand a chance at all. Lumi cheered, bubbling with anticipation. Orion laughed lightly, appreciating Lumi's constant enthusiasm. Let's hope so, Lumi. But these echoes are becoming considerably stronger, especially now that they are on the same level as me. We need to stay cautious. As if responding to his determination, the tower began to teleport him upwards once more. The brief sensation of displacement soon faded, leaving Orion on a higher floor. Here, a powerful echo wielding a massive battle axe awaited him, exuding immense physical strength and presence. Instantly, Orion's dragon instinct flared vividly in his mind, sharpening every sense. He moved fluidly, his body and sword working in perfect harmony, spells seamlessly integrated into each strike and parry. He deflected powerful blows with subtle yet precise movements, conserving mana by using well-timed Tier 1 thunder spells to disrupt his opponent's footing and attacks. Floor after floor, Orion advanced steadily. His opponents now ranged widely, each significantly more formidable, some robust warriors whose physical prowess matched Orion's own powerful physique, and formidable mages whose complex chants gave him trouble. On higher floors, Orion faced dual-element mages who skillfully intertwined fire and wind spells to amplify their destructiveness, or cunning adversaries who combined earth and water to form defensive barriers nearly impenetrable to conventional attacks. Damn, this is getting exciting. Orion said with an excited smile as the 50th floor came closer and closer.